All right, let's go.
All right. 3, 2,
Okay. For years, the mystery of Madalena Kojukari has tormented many in the Carolinas, with a community in Cornelius, North Carolina and beyond hungry for answers. Since her case opened, the town has seen the girl's mother and stepfather go to trial, not on charges directly related to her disappearance, but rather for failing to report her missing. The latest indications are her mother, who is considered a suspect, is likely no longer in the country. Thank you for joining us. I'm Vanessa Rufus, and you are watching our in-depth look at the search for Madalena. During this special coverage, we're going to use interviews, police documents, and court testimony to piece together all we know about this years-long case. We start the story where the questions began, and a school bus ride now seen throughout the Carolinas and beyond. I might do that one more time.
Yeah.
3.
Can we start the recording?
Yeah, that's fine.
2.
For years, the mystery of Madalena Kojukari has tormented many in Cornelius, North Carolina and beyond, folks hungry for answers. And since her case opened, the town has seen the girl's mother and stepfather go to trial, not on any charges directly related to her disappearance, but rather for failing to report her missing. And the latest indications are her mother, who is considered a suspect, is likely no longer in the country. We thank you for joining us. I'm Vanessa Rufus, and you are watching our in-depth look at the search for Madalena. And during this special coverage, we are going to take a look at interviews, police documents, court testimony to try to piece together all that we know about this years-long case. So we start the story where the questions began and a bus ride now seen all across the Carolinas and beyond. Okay. So that is the first part, and then we get into the next part. Okay, 3, 2, 1. In the days that follow, folks, 3, 2, 1. In the days that follow, neighbors start to become aware that something is amiss in their community. All right, and then we skip forward to the end of the A block, 3, 2, 1. We're back with more after this. All right, and then there's the B block, and then just scrolling down here. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that money matters emerged in this case. Palmer would later testify that Diana's apparent fixation over finances, her outbursts, ritualistic behavior, as well as a deep concern for her safety and Madalena's safety would narratives. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that money matters would emerge during court. 3, 2, 1. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that money matters emerged during this case. Palmer would later testify that Diana's apparent fixation over finances and her outbursts, ritualistic behavior, as well as a deep concern for her safety and for Madalena's safety, narratives that had authorities probing deeper into the family relationship and how Palmer came to meet his Moldovan bride and stepdaughter. Okay, scrolling down here. Ooh, I see we're running out of time. Do you want to?
Wait another minute.
There's a lot more.
Okay, that's fine, fine.
Okay. Okay, so we're starting off with Charlotte
Yeah, if
FC.
it's not there, we'll go to food on the second floor.
Okay.
We usually start at 12:30.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Thanks so much for being with us here for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We start off with a major headline across the nation today, including here in the Charlotte area. That is the travel impacts from the ongoing government shutdown. If you've been keeping track, this morning was the day that the FAA flight reductions were set to take in place, and that indeed happened. So at this point, we're actually seeing total cancellations nationwide standing at 1,200. That is an increase from what we were seeing over the last few hours in the morning hours when we were watching FlightAware's counting of cancellations. Total delays today just under 2,000. Now, as far as Charlotte Douglas International Airport is concerned, we were seeing cancellations hovering around the 40 mark. We do know that Charlotte Douglas is among the airports that are part of the FAA flight reduction plans, as the ongoing government shutdown is stressing air traffic controllers. These folks have been calling out of work essentially to pick up other jobs, as they have been going long time now here without any pay. And this has become a major strain for these folks trying to make their finances work. So with that, we want to get to the very latest from the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, who addressed the matter earlier today, just hours ago, as he was at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. And we'll kind of regroup afterwards with even more updates that we have on this front.
I necessarily didn't want to give the data because some people might say, well, you're at 10%, it should be at 15%. Others might say it should be at 5%. It is not a science, it is an art that we're trying to deploy to keep people safe in the airspace. And we're trying to be, we're trying to prevent the pressure that we now see building in the system. There's a very easy solution. Let's open the government up. Let's pay our controllers and reduce the pressure. That's not happening. The Senate actually is going home this weekend. As many people here can't get home, the Senate goes home. They should be here every day, every weekend, every week, trying to find a deal so we can open the government back up.
Mr. Secretary.
I'm not done. I want to talk to you about the data. So first, some have asked what's happened in the airspace. So a few points that we look at that are sending us in the wrong direction. Right? So number one, loss of separation in the airspace. So that's the minimum distance we keep between aircraft to keep them safe. We've seen breaches, more breaches in regard to that loss of separation. We see more incursions on tarmacs throughout the country. And we have more complaints from pilots about stress from air traffic controllers and more complaints about the lack of responsiveness from controllers. So that data is going in the wrong direction, not in the right direction, which made us make the decision we have to actually take additional measures to reduce the pressure in our system. I want to make one comparison. I'm getting sniped at by some Democrats. I don't like it. I didn't put us in this situation.
All right. And then he did go on to say that even if there is a reopening of the government soon, it might not directly and immediately put travel back to where we would expect it to be, because he says it will take some time to get these ATCs actually back on the job, as they are physically at probably other jobs at this point trying to make ends meet. So more on that to come. We can tell you the Senate is in session as we speak, likely discussing the latest version of the spending bill on the table. We'll update you as we learn more on that front. Meantime, we got to bring it back here to the Carolinas, talk about a big match that's happening tonight at the Bank. Charlotte FC with the third match of its best of three series against NYCFC. And there's a lot of anticipation for this. Our resident, let's say, soccer aficionado, producer Jeb Goldman has some insight lined up for us right now. So Jeb, who are we going to speak with, and what do you got for us this afternoon?
Well, we were just talking about travel, and we'll talk to one of the best traveled members of the MLS commentary team. I'm joined by Tony Husband. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe the biggest game in Charlotte FC's short but storied history.
That's right. Yeah, it all comes down to the Bank tonight. It's a win or go home affair. Should be a tremendous atmosphere on what looks like it's going to be a beautiful evening here in Charlotte tonight. But a lot of tension, I think, will be in the air as well for this game against New York City. Series tied, two very, very closely matched teams. Not a lot between them at all. So it's going to be fine margins, edge of your seat kind of stuff. But hopefully a must-watch match.
It should be a fantastic matchup between two very good teams that have been razor thin with their margins Let's put it bluntly, Tony. What does Charlotte FC need to do to win tonight?
They've got to be better offensively, without a doubt. I mean, they've played 180 minutes now of regulation soccer, if you like, against this New York City side, and they failed to score. And goal scoring is a concern. Idan Toklamati, the central striker, leading scorer for Charlotte this season, has not scored since he got a hat-trick against Lionel Messi in Miami back in September. That has to change because they are not going to win this game without scoring some goals against what is a very stout New York City defense. But that is the main area that Dean Smith will be concerned about going into this game. They need to open up the goal channels a little bit, find some way to score some goals to secure that place in the next round of the competition, which would be the conference semi-finals later this month.
Wilfried Zaha, the designated player, likely team MVP when all is said and done, back at home for the first time in this series. A little bit wider pitch tonight, which I think should help and lend to his strengths. What do we need to see from him? You talk about getting goals offensively. It's very likely going to run through him. Most goals Charlotte score do. What do you want to see from him, and how can that make the team play better?
I want to see that contribution being good, and I want to see it being high up the field as well. As you say, he's been an outstanding player in his first season in MLS. He's not been shy to go to the media and to use his own channels to just call out some people when they're critical of his performances. He's a very targeted individual, of course, on the field. He was the most fouled player in Major League Soccer this season. That in itself could be a significant factor tonight because it's where he gets the ball on the field. If he gets the ball high up the field and if he's fouled, then those are set-piece situations for this Charlotte team with some very strong and tall defenders who can get up into the box. Because this kind of game could come down to that one set piece, a free kick, something like that around the box that Zaha can deliver with quality, and that could be nodded in by one of their defenders or the likes of a Toklamati up there as well. So Zaha brings, so many threats, whether it's on the dribble, whether it is unlocking defenses, setting up chances for other people. But he needs to have a good game tonight if Charlotte are going to get through.
Looking at the main man for New York City, Alonso Martinez, whether you call it a moment of brilliance or blunder with the first goal and only goal of the series so far, personally, I think I speak for a lot of Charlotte FC fans when we were screaming at our televisions when it happened. What do Adelson Malanda and Tim Ream need to do to keep him quiet? Because he can run for days and days and days, and he's a little quicker than our back line, but that doesn't mean they can't keep him quiet like they did last time out.
No, that's right. They'll want to keep him in front of them because you're right. He's fast. He's been recorded at over 22 miles per hour this season. He's a quick player. You don't want to turn this Charlotte backline around. I mean, Tim Ream is in his late 30s now. He will read the game if it's played in front of him far better than if they get in behind him. So that will be the key with him. They'll also want to squeeze things a bit because actually that's where New York City could have an advantage. Maxi Morales sits in that little 10 spot. And if you give him a bit of room, he can dictate play in much the same way that Pep Biel did for Charlotte this season so effectively. And, of course, he's a massive miss for Charlotte due to the knee injury that keeps him out for the rest of the season now. So Martinez is certainly a man to watch. Like you say, it was either a piece of brilliance or some bad defending from statuesque type defenders in that first game that ultimately was the difference and is really the only difference between these two sides over 180 minutes if you take aside the penalty kicks from last week. So keeping him quiet like they did at Yankee Stadium last week is very much the key to success as well.
Speaking of differences, I think while it is another home match, it is going to be a much different home match. The last time out, a Tuesday, dreary Charlotte evening. And while I do believe this is maybe the second city that never sleeps, Tuesday's a tough ask. Tuesday in cold, rainy weather, even tougher. Now, to your point earlier, a beautiful Friday evening in the Queen City. I happen to have it on good authority that this is a very sold-out match. How big of a part do you think the atmosphere tonight will play in the final result?
Well, I come from the school of thought with my English background where our crowds are, I've grown up watching, and seeing how hostility towards an away team, fair hostility, obviously, can change a game. How the fan base rallying behind a home team really can be the 12th man, how you can just push your team across the line, how you can galvanize your players, how you can make it uncomfortable for the opposition. And those are all the kind of things that, Charlotte fans would want to do tonight against New York City, to just give them any edge they can. Because when you have two teams who are so well matched, you are looking for those finest of margins, any extra advantage. And a sold-out lower bowl bank, that's an advantage for Charlotte. The players have got to feed off that, but the fans are going to have to feed off it as well and really get into this game and keep the noise levels up and back their team, 200%, because this is a huge game, as you mentioned, in Charlotte FC's history. It's a great opportunity for the first time to reach the conference semifinals, and then you're talking about one-off games all the way to MLS Cup. And when you get to that point, anything can happen in a one-off match, and this Charlotte team, with their head coach and the experience they've got, can beat anybody on their day. So, this is a huge moment, and the fans have a huge part to play on what should be, like you say, a very nice evening as well.
A historic game for a historic season for the club. For those of you who will not be making it out today, and there aren't many, you can hear Tony Husband on the call tonight, as he often is. His amazing calling of the games keeps us watching and interested. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
That's really kind of you, Jeb. But what I will say is, if Charlotte fans make lots of noise tonight, I won't need to speak too much. So I look forward to plenty of noise, and let the Charlotte fans be the overwhelming sound tonight.
I have a feeling that is just going to be exactly what happens. Tony, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers.
7 o'clock tonight at the Bank should be a fantastic match. Hope to see lots of you out there. I happen to know lots of you will be.
Definitely feels like a good time to be a Carolina sports fan.
Yes, perhaps the best in years.
Good vibes right now. All right, great interview. Thank you for doing that, Jeb. And we, of course, will keep folks updated. We'll be watching that match very closely. We got a couple updates. Jeb, I tagged those for you. I'm guessing this is a great time for a break. But I will say we just got some new information on that Cleveland County deputy who we were told by the sheriff's office, off-duty deputy, was involved with a deadly domestic violence incident. We're getting a few more details about a court appearance and formal charges that have been filed. We also have an update on that measles outbreak out of South Carolina that we've been covering for several weeks. So with that, a 2-minute break. We'll be back on the other side with those updates and many more here on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back everyone to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We have a couple updates to share. First, an update out of Cleveland County, a breaking news story we've been following for the last couple of hours here. Cleveland County Sheriff's Office says that one of its off-duty deputies was involved with a deadly domestic violence incident late last night. And just moments ago, our team was able to dig up some information from the court system showing some formal charges here and some happenings in court just this morning. So the off-duty deputy in question, Mitchell Hilton, we're seeing is now formally charged with first-degree murder, and we have knowledge here of that case being heard today at 9 o'clock this morning. Hilton was assigned a public defender. His bond was denied, set to appear next in court on December 2nd. We do have a reporter working on this. Our Walker Lawson has been trying to dig up more information, even going out to that Shelby area where the death was reported. This was at the Crown Ridge Apartments on South DeKalb Street in Shelby. And we'll just remind you as well, this is now a state investigation as SBI is handling the matter. More updates to come here on Live Impact and on our evening news tonight here on WCNC+. The other update we want to share comes from the public health front. We just heard from the Department of Public Health in South Carolina that they have yet another measles case reported. We've got now the upstate outbreak total standing at 35. Total number of cases overall of measles in South Carolina this year now up to 38. Now, this is potential exposure. This is a potential exposure situation where now you have additional people who are being investigated according to health officials. More information to come in the days ahead because apparently there were some family members of this new case who were exposed. 31 people remain in quarantine at this hour, and the health department, as you know, we've been reporting on this for several weeks, is really trying to get a handle on this outbreak to make sure it doesn't spread even further. But this is the one that is reported out of the Spartanburg area. We'll just mention this, they are pushing more vaccinations for folks who have not been vaccinated or not up to date on their MMR vaccines. So there are some details on how folks can get that information if you go to the South Carolina Public Health Department website, places where you can actually get the vaccine as they're rolling out a mobile health unit as well to try to reach as many people as possible. All right, and with that, we want to actually get to a live feed that we're seeing. As we speak here on Live Impact News, we have President Trump sitting down with leadership from Hungary. This is a discussion that we're seeing that will take place over trade and other topics, but there we have it. We'll take you there now to see how the Prime Minister and the President are speaking.
What we are doing.
To both of you, in English.
We're talking, but we'll report on that later. Meetings with Putin. We were talking about that with Victor. He understands Putin and knows him very well. And I feel that, I'm going to let you say what you think, but I think that Victor feels we're going to get that war ended in the not too distant future. Victor, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I'm strongly convinced. So the question is whether we Westerners are unified or not. The problem is that the president has huge peace efforts, which are just splendid and very positive for the European continent and all the peoples of Europe. But at the same time, we are not unified because Brussels and the Europeans has a different approach to the war. So the only pro-peace government is the United States government and the small Hungary in Europe anyway. All the other governments prefer to continue the war because many of them think that Ukraine can win on the front line, which is a misunderstanding of the situation. So it's a complicated issue. We will discuss it. It requests not just 2 minutes to respond to your question, but rather than our lecture. Sorry, not to continue more than that.
To both of you.
So you would say that Ukraine cannot win that war?
You know, miracle can happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. President, to both of you. It can be a peace summit.
Thank you, Mr. President. What is your message to the EU because from Hungary and the EU want to impose their war policies on Hungary? What is your message?
Well, I think they should respect Hungary and respect this leader very, very strongly because he's been right on immigration. Look what's happened to Europe with the immigration. They have people flooding Europe all over the place, and it's hurting it. It's the crime rates are way up. A lot of bad things are happening. His crime rates are very low. They're the same as they always were, which is very little crime, because he's kept it the way it should be. Europe, I mean, I don't want to go into individual countries. They're all friends of mine, everyone. As you know, in NATO, they voted to go from 2% to 5%, and, you know, that nobody thought that was possible. And we had just about almost, other than Spain, a unanimous vote. No, I think that I think they respect him a lot. They don't agree with him, but actually, inwardly, I think they probably do agree. He was right on immigration. They were wrong. They are flooding Europe with people from all over the world, and Europe is becoming a different place. And I tell the leaders all the time, you better stop or you're not going to have Europe anymore. It's a very dangerous thing they're doing.
May I have a reflection on that? So on migration issue, just for clarification, in Hungary, the number of illegal migration is like that, zero, because we have a crystal clear system. If somebody would like to come to Hungary, first he should ask for that. If he gives the permission, they can step in. Nobody can step on the territory of Hungary without having a permission from the Hungarian authorities. This is the regulation, simple, while working. What is the consequence of that? We are under sanctions, financial sanctions of European Union, because we don't let the illegal migrations to come to Hungary and to the European Union as well. So we have to pay, just to inform you, we have to pay every day €1 million as a punishment to the Brazilian budget, because we stopped the migrants. This is the absurd world we are living now in Europe.
Mr. President, to both of you.
Go ahead, please. Yes,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
so much. Thank you. I'd like to ask what do you think, what do you believe after this meeting? Can you have maybe, or the European Union will have another opinion about, just because of this penalty, another opinion about Hungary, because of the immigration and because of this kind of politics, which is not that strictly as the European Union directs. What do you believe?
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Hungary.
Okay. I do have that conversation with them, and I respect and like them. You know, they're all friends of mine. I think pretty much every single leader in Europe is a friend of mine. We get along really well. They've done everything I've asked them to do with NATO, et cetera. The only thing they continue to do is buy oil from Russia. That's not too good. But I told them they should respect this man. They can also learn from Victor. Victor has had a very hard stance on, more than anything else, immigration or even illegal immigration. He literally has accepted no one over the years. Think of how much greater these countries would be if they didn't have the tremendous crime that has come in with the immigration. People just flowing into Europe. They've got to stop it. And not only stop it, they have to reverse it. They have to get them out. We've done that here. We have 0 people coming in now. The borders are closed. We take people, but we take them legally. But we've done it very strongly, and we're moving hundreds of thousands, millions of people out. We had, of the 20 million people, 25 million, nobody knows even what the number is. They never knew. Biden had no idea. He had no idea. I don't believe he had any idea what was happening, because he wasn't about open borders. But we had open borders, and we had millions of people come in, and they were coming in from jails. They were coming in from mental institutions. They were coming in as drug dealers. We had 11,888 murderers. Half of them committed more than one murder. We're getting them all out. We're getting them out. He doesn't have that problem, but Europe does have that problem. Other parts of Europe have that problem. So, I tell them all the time, I stick up for Viktor Orban. Not a lot of people do, because in many cases they're jealous. They wish they did what he did. They would have no problems if they did what he did. And I have a bigger heart than anybody, but, they've destroyed some of those countries. Some of those countries had no crime 10 years ago, and now they have quite a bit of crime. And I would say that I don't know anything about your crime levels, but I would imagine they're very low. Huh?
They're very
Not
down.
too high, right?
No, it's very down. One of the best in
I
Europe.
had a feeling.
Sorry, may I have one remark?
Sure, please.
No. Just a clarification as well. I'm not here to ask how President Trump to manage my conflicts or our conflicts with the European Union. This is our matter, so we will do it. What we need is a golden age, to open a golden age of the United States-Hungary relationship. That's the biggest help we can get from United
And
States.
maybe Europe too, you know, we can include Europe, but it's going to get more difficult.
So inside the European Union, we will manage all of our affairs. To be the most possible humble guy, yeah? But I'm the longest-serving Prime Minister of Europe. I survived all the Prime Ministers who attacked us. And I'm sure we will survive next years as well. So we will manage our conflicts successfully.
Mr. President,
one question for you, Mr. President. One question for the Prime Minister. Speaking of Europe, last month you said that you would not withdraw U.S. troops from Europe, yet 2 weeks later the Pentagon decided to withdraw significant number of troops from Romania. So have you changed your mind, or the Pentagon ignored your assurance?
No, they don't ignore anything that I say. What they do is we make changes. We move. It's the same number, total number, but we move people around. I happen to like the Romanian people. I think they're great people. And Pete, you may want to suggest something right there, please.
Absolutely. No, nothing was uncoordinated with the White House. It's all part of the view that we have of Europe, and there will remain troops in Romania, but there's some change in how we rotate and how many we rotate.
And the relationship with Romania is very good, right?
Very good, and we've coordinated all this with Secretary General Ruta, with throughout EUCOM, throughout our allies. Everyone was notified in advance.
The relationship with Romania is very good. The relationship with Europe is very good. I disagree with what Europe is doing having to do with immigration, but I agree with them on many other subjects. We just signed the biggest trade deal ever made with Europe, $950 billion. We were able to do it because of tariffs. It was a deal that was good, very good, but we had a very unfair deal. We were treated very badly before I came into office, but we just signed. It's the single biggest trade deal ever signed. So we have a very good relationship with Europe. Yeah.
What is the main dispute with the Russians which prevent the Budapest summit with Putin from
the basic dispute is they just don't want to stop yet. And I think they will. I think it's taken a big toll on Russia, a big toll on both countries, obviously, but it's taken a big toll. They're losing 7,000 soldiers a week. That's a big toll. And between the two of them, divided, you know, with Russia losing more soldiers, actually. But they're both losing a lot of people. And that's the primary thing that, with me, it's not economic, it's not money. In fact, we don't spend any money. We send it to NATO. They pay us for our missiles and for our military and everything else. We don't. It's not a question of money. It was with Biden. He spent $350 billion. He got nothing for it. The war would have never happened. If I were president, the war would have never happened. I think you would agree with that. This war would never have happened if I were president. It's stupid that it happened. But it did happen. I inherited the war, and I think we're going to get it ended. Not too distant future. Yes, please.
So no question that if that time the name of the United States president would have been Donald Trump, there would be no war between Ukraine and Russia. That's clear. But what we are speaking about here is more than that. Because without the pressure coming from the United States government, I'm speaking 2022, the Europeans would not take that hard line, what they have to in the war. Remember that big countries of Europe rejected to be involved more than just sending some, humanitarian issues. So the pressure coming from the United States to be more pro-war in Europe. So that's the fact of the history anyway. So we have to restore something which was ruined and created from here, and that's the reason why I understand absolutely the devotion of the president now to do everything to stop the war, because that would be not that deep without the previous government pressure from here. So the reason why I'm here to be as much as helpful I can to contribute to the peace efforts of the president, because that was an enormous mistake what we have done, I mean, the Western world several years ago, and we have to stop it, and it's common responsibility.
Biden actually pushed for that war to happen. Okay, if you can believe it. Nobody can believe it, but it's one of those things. And now look what happened. Look what's happened to Ukraine. It's a much smaller country. A lot of people are dead. You take a look at it's a whole different world over there. And Russia has not been helped very much by that war either. They lost a tremendous number of soldiers and people. And, you know, look, that war should have been a one-week war. I don't know why it's taken. This is 4 years. Should have been 1 week. Should have been over with, but it would have never started. Should have never started. And I would have solved the problem without giving up anything. Ukraine would have remained as is. So there were tremendous mistakes long before I got there. I inherited that mess, and we're getting it solved, along with the 8 wars that we've already ended.
Mr. President,
what is America's interest cultivating better relations with the EU leader or non?
I think I can do both. I mean, there's no reason why I can't. I get along well with the European nations.
We are still a member of the European Union, so it's easy.
Yeah, and by the way, he's a member in good standing, I guess, although they penalize him every once in a while. But he's a member in good standing with the European Union, so he's a member. He's a part of it. But I get along great with him. I get along very well with them. I agree with him on immigration much more than I agree with them. But I agree with, a lot of the things in Europe he also agrees with. But he had a difference, I would say, primarily on immigration more than anything else. And I happen to think he was right, because their whole fabric has changed. I mean, you go to some of the countries, they're unrecognizable now because of what they've done. And Hungary is very recognizable. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, will there be a peaceful meeting in Budapest still this year? What do you think?
You mean a meeting with President Putin?
Yes.
You mean in Hungary? Well, I'd like to keep it in Hungary, in Budapest. That meeting, it turned out I didn't want to do that meeting because I didn't think anything was going to be happening of significance. But if we have it, I'd like to do it in Budapest. Yeah, it'd be good.
Mr. President, you said many times to support Viktor Orban. Why is it important to win the next election, for example, for the United States, Hungary, and also Europe? Why is it important?
Well, I don't know his opponent. I don't know if he has an opponent yet. At some point he will, I guess. We always have opponents,
always.
right? Not much of an opponent. But I'll be supportive of him. He's done a fantastic job. We've had a great relationship. The United States, look, we had a country that had no leader. It had an auto pen, illegal auto pen, totally illegal. And that's coming out stronger and stronger. But we had no leader in the United States. I mean, Hungary, as an example, had no relationship with the United States, even though we do, billions of dollars in trade with Hungary. Hungary's a big country economically. We do, billions of dollars in trade with Hungary. Why would they give that up? And they gave up so much else. Look, they gave up everything. This country was poorly run. I think if I didn't win the election, we might not have a country, if you want to know the truth, not a recognizable country. But our relationship was immediately good as soon as I won the election, because Victor's one of the people that's highly respected, and we had a great relationship with Hungary. We do again. That was an easy one. Yeah.
Do you and Prime Minister Orban agree on ways to put pressure on President Putin to come to the negotiating table to end the war in Ukraine?
I think we agree that the war is going to end. Sometimes people have to fight it out a little bit longer, but I think we agree that the war is going to end in the not-too-distant future. Do you want to talk about that, Victor?
I have some ideas, and I will present it to the President, how to stop it.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. President, since you brought up the Walmart Thanksgiving meal, and it is cheaper, but it also contains less, as a board of
Well, I haven't heard that. You're telling me. Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with NBC News, sir.
Fake news. NBC. You're fake news. What a NBC's gone down the tubes along with most of the rest of them.
If I ask, why do you think there's such a disconnect between the economy that you're describing day to day and the way many Americans say they're feeling and they're concerned concerned about?
Well, they feel better about our country right now, other than the shutdown, obviously, which is caused by the Democrats, could be ended by the Democrats in 2 minutes. They feel much better. We have more jobs. We just set a record on jobs. You do know that. We have more investment in our country than any country in history. We're over $18 trillion as of this moment, and we're going to be maybe at 20 or 21 trillion by the time I finish up my first year. And there's been no country, China, no country in the world that's done anywhere even close to that number. Your friend Biden, as an example, in 4 years was less than $1 trillion. We'll be at 21 trillion in 1 year. So there's no country that was even close to that, and our country was a laughingstock all over the world. We have more jobs, we have more potential than any other country, and frankly, we're the hottest country right now. Victor said to me before, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. Think of it. We'll have $21 trillion invested. We have auto plants pouring back in. We have AI pouring back in. We're leading China in AI by a lot. We're leading everybody in every category. There's no category that we're in second place. So I just heard this yesterday that Walmart said that the Thanksgiving was 25% more expensive under Biden. That's a big, to me, that's a big number, because Walmart's respected. I mean, Walmart is Walmart, and, you know, they're giving you prices. So that would mean that the whole series of pricing and costs, you know, the groceries and everything else, it was a con job. It was a con job. Affordability, they call it, was a con job by the Democrats. The Democrats are good at a few things: cheating on elections and conning people with facts that aren't true. It was 25%. Walmart just announced it 2 days ago. 25% cheaper this year, will be cheaper to have Thanksgiving than it was a year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden.
You say that affordability is a con job, as you put it.
All right, folks, we're going to pivot away from this for just a moment. We're going to take a quick break here. On the other side, about 2 minutes from now, we'll be talking about that emergency food drive that is underway as we speak here in the Charlotte area with local food pantry Nourish Up. So there's a part that all of us can play in having a positive impact on our neighbors in need as the government shutdown continues and those SNAP benefits remain in limbo. We'll be back in 2. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We continue to cover the local impacts of the ongoing government shutdown. As you might remember now, as of this week, the longest in U.S. history. We are in day 38 right now. And we mentioned this as well as we speak, the Senate in session discussing an updated plan to partially fund the government past Thanksgiving with a full year of funding for some agencies, but not all. We'll keep an eye on how that fares in the Senate. Meantime, we've got a local impact we've been talking about. That's the impact of these SNAP benefits being in limbo. Actually, just this morning, we broke the news that the Trump administration actually formally filed a emergency pause request on the federal judge ruling from yesterday afternoon, which ordered the administration to fully fund SNAP this month. So that is also, keep in mind, making its way through the court system as we speak. I want to bring in Nourish up right now. COO Danielle Moore is joining us to talk about this emergency food drive, which is underway because we know, Danielle, there are some big impacts to folks in our community because of the SNAP and also just the ongoing shutdown with federal workers not getting paid. Y'all have been seeing a major increase, right, in the folks coming for help to your agency, your organization?
Yes, that's correct. We went and saw pretty much a 20% increase overnight since the government shut down and the neighbors that we're serving. So those furloughed federal workers that aren't receiving a paycheck, and now 140,000 plus SNAP recipients that aren't receiving benefits are calling our phones. Our lines are off the hook. We cannot answer them fast enough. And many people have showed up to our doors just looking for whatever they can find. And so we're here so people don't have to make the tough decision between putting food on their table or keeping a roof over their head.
Yeah, I mean, that 140,000 figure you mentioned, that is just Mecklenburg County alone. We know that there are 1.4 million North Carolinians who rely on SNAP benefits. And there was a figure that you shared with our news team earlier this week, which I think is really telling just the scope of how impactful SNAP is for these folks. The fact that you were saying that your organization, Just Nourish Up, for every one person you feed, it's 9 people that SNAP feeds. And so kind of putting into perspective, you were saying, I mean, specifically to kind of paraphrase what you were saying, this is not a task that Just Nourish Up or even Nourish Up with a bunch of local food pantries can actually band together and even try to touch. This is something that, SNAP is hugely impactful, and this is being greatly missed by the folks who rely on this. What have you been doing in the meantime to try to, I guess, get a handle on this mountain that is in front of you right now?
Yeah, so we are in emergency response mode. We are at the moment having mass packing and distribution events throughout the county. And what that looks like for us is really just ramping up operations, from purchasing more tractor trailer loads of food to packing more food boxes, and then of course having distribution sites where we can serve up to 500 in about 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, I was actually at your distribution site yesterday afternoon, the one at Eastern Hills Baptist Church, and it was a really eye-opening experience. I've done, volunteer work with Nourish Up before, but it was my first time at this specific distribution site. And so we were actually able to speak with a woman who said that she receives SNAP benefits, and so she said that this is a burden with the government shutdown, with those benefits being in limbo. But we were seeing other folks who it seemed like maybe it was their first time coming to you all for help, including there was a woman and her story. I mean, this sticks with me still. I mean, I think about she walked to the distribution site. She had a young child with her, and they actually walked, and they were actually going to walk home with their boxes of food until, after speaking with some of the volunteers, everyone was able to convince them to essentially take a lift back, like a ride share back, so they didn't have to walk back with all of their food. But she essentially, it sounded like she wasn't sure, like, is this the place to go? I've never done this before. And it was just really telling to me how quickly folks' circumstances can change in a situation like this. Maybe folks who might have never thought about, I might need food assistance, are now having to think about this right now.
Yeah, that is unfortunately a very common story. A lot of people that receive our services are actually new to food insecurity and hunger themselves. They've never experienced it before, especially when you think about someone that may be gainfully employed one day and then the next day they don't receive a check, right? And so we make sure that we educate the community that what hunger looks like is you and I. It could be any one of us at any time, and all it takes is one crisis, like a government shutdown, like COVID, like your car needing a battery replaced, to find yourself on the side of needing services and that hand up.
And I mean, I know you mentioned the 20% figure, that bump that you saw in clients since the government shutdown happened. I can tell you, your team told our team, because we had the whole WCNC Charlotte folks who were able to get to that distribution site to help out yesterday. Your team told us that just for that distribution event, as it relates to what you typically expect for the numbers at that event, it was a 49% increase, they were telling us. So it was even larger than kind of the average that you say that you've been seeing. I'm curious, how the different ways folks can help, because obviously we've been talking about this emergency food drive. So the non-perishable food, we're definitely inviting folks to come on over to Holy Comforter Episcopal Church from 10 to 4 p.m. And you can bring those non-perishable items to donate in person. We've been talking about donating via, basically online. You can text Stuff the Truck to 50155, and you'll get some information on how to donate online. And you were saying that you actually have some great buying power in the sense of the monetary donations you get can actually probably go a lot further than maybe just an average consumer going to the grocery store trying to pick up, let's say, $50 worth of groceries.
Yeah, it certainly can, and that's just because we purchase in such volume. Again, when you're feeding 165,000 people, that's tractor trailer loads of food, right? And so we can get green beans, for example, at a way cheaper price than the average person can from even some of those wholesalers like Sam's, Costco's, and BJ's. So, I encourage you to donate online, nourishup.org. Definitely, you can donate the food. So think about things you and your family might want to eat, and those are the healthy type of things that we would encourage you to donate. And if you're anything like me and you're an online shopper, we also have an Amazon wish list that you can just a click of a button order food and have it delivered right to our door. So all of those ways are great ways to get involved.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to ask about, for folks who maybe feel like they are not, with the means of being able to give at this time, but they still want to help. I know that y'all accept volunteers. Like I said, I've done work before where, you can go in the warehouse and you can help pack boxes. I've done the delivery driver volunteering where you actually have the boxes get packed up and you drive them to folks' homes if, they're homebound or there's some reason that they can't go in person to shop in your food pantries. What sort of volunteer opportunities will you have for folks specifically related to, this emergency response that you have? Are there any particular duties that folks can be doing for you right now as volunteers?
Yeah, so our number one need today as we speak is delivery drivers. We need drivers today that can use their personal vehicle to deliver our Meals on Wheels program. So we deliver a lunchtime meal to homebound seniors, about 500 homebound seniors a day. Or you can also help deliver through our grocery home delivery program. So delivering that week's worth or 7-day supply of groceries to neighbors' homes that can't get out, just like your story, right? A mom and a child having to walk to the pantry and thinking about how they're going to get 60 pounds of food home. Well, if you volunteer today to deliver groceries, that takes the worry off of that mom's plate. That's one less thing that she has to think about. And so today you can sign up to volunteer to deliver groceries or meals. And then as we speak, we are adding additional packing shifts in our warehouse so that we can continue to ramp up our emergency food box inventory.
How can folks sign up?
If you go to our website, nourishup.org, there is an entire volunteer tab with all of the opportunities listed, and it's a few clicks of a button. There's a sign up online.
All right. Very good to know for folks out there. Definitely encourage them to check that out. I think, personal experience, it's a great experience no matter which roles you take on, but the delivery driver one is particularly, great in the sense that while you don't always interact or interface with the folks you're dropping the food off, I mean, you can essentially leave it there at their door, but sometimes you get to chat with folks, and it's really eye-opening to get to meet your neighbors and hear their stories. So anything you'd like to leave our viewers with here on Live Impact before we wrap things up, either about the specific emergency drive or just in general how things have been going just in general in the last several weeks or months for Nourish Up?
Yeah, if I had one final thing to leave the viewers with, of course, you can always donate money and donate food and certainly donate your time through volunteering. But if you don't have capacity to do any of the other things, at the very least, please, please, please call your lawmakers and let them know again that there is a crisis. We are in a critical time where, again, no single organization, Nourish Up or anyone else, can fill in the gap for our nation's frontline defense against hunger, which is SNAP. So please call your lawmakers and advocate on behalf of our neighbors that can't do it themselves. They are counting on us to make our voices heard and let them know that we need these benefits released immediately. It's affecting people's lives.
Danielle Moore with Nourish Up, thank you so much for your time and all the work that you do in the community. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll remind you one more time the details on the food drive, just for folks who want to write this down or put this on their phone. So the in-person donation is this Saturday, so tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Holy Comforter Episcopal Church. That's at 2701 Park Road. Non-perishable food items accepted there. Online donation, stuff the truck, one word, stuff the truck to 50155. That will basically send you a link that you can donate through your phone. And you heard Danielle talking about the fact that that is very, important for them because they have some great buying power as they're able to buy food in bulk. So that money will go a long way. Much more to come. We're going to, of course, keep an eye on the back and forth and the ongoing movements with the SNAP funding fight that's underway in the court system. As we mentioned, there was an order for the Trump administration to fully fund SNAP benefits this month. However, this morning, the administration filed a formal request to have an emergency pause put on that order, as the Trump administration is saying that there isn't, because of the government shutdown, enough funding to fully fund SNAP. So we'll keep you updated. We're going to take a quick break, folks. 2 minutes from now, we'll be back with a couple of feeds we're watching. Really kind of a widespread of things. So stay with us here on Live Impact. All right, folks, you're watching Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We just got an update on a breaking news story. Want to bring this to you now. Just moments ago, Monroe Police sharing an update on the double homicide that was reported very early this morning, essentially around midnight this morning. It sounds like we have identification on the two people who were killed, plus some more information on the suspect in this case. As you could see, a mugshot. Police telling us here that they took into custody 34-year-old Adam Latif Mercado. That is the picture you're seeing here. Mercado charged with the murders of two people who we now learned are 52-year-old Matthew Charles Moody and 49-year-old James Curtis Wallace. Both of those men were found dead inside an apartment, police say, in the 2600 block of Nelda Drive in Monroe. Monroe police responded to the apartment there, which we're told is Moody's apartment, one of the victims in this case, to assist CMPD with a welfare check. They say they found both men dead inside that residence. So there you can see once again the arrest of the suspect in this case. Investigators say, however, they are still trying to gather more information. If you know anything, you are urged to contact Monroe Police or Union County Crime Stoppers. So Monroe Police or Union County Crime Stoppers will have updates for you as the day goes on and in the coming days. Speaking of updates, we're actually getting a couple of updates today from a couple of major fires from out on the West Coast from earlier. We've got right now as we speak an update on the Eaton fire, which was from the beginning of this year, that massive, unfortunately deadly fire which burned through thousands and thousands of acres. It looks like there is findings presented right now on lab testing done on homes following cleanup efforts. So it sounds like there's a concern about how well cleanup is going to be done after this fire. Let's listen in.
Basically for your lifetime. Those cancer risks are also amplified if you happen to be a smoker. They will multiply your risks. Here are a few other concerns. Children. Children are not little adults. We now know after 25 years of research that children are much more vulnerable to toxicants, partly because their organs are still developing and the rapid proliferation of tissues is accompanied by biological changes that make them much more susceptible to toxicity. There's certain protective barriers in a body that are meant to protect the brain. The blood-brain barrier, which are not formed fully yet in children when they're born or in the first couple of years of life. Then children tend to be closer to the floor. And when you look at the dust levels in a house, there's a gradient with higher levels of exposure close to the floor, and they get lower as you go up. Another concern, we may have some data on the lead, on the asbestos, on some of the other CAM-17 metals. How about other contaminants? How about the levels of the dust particles and the metals that can attach to them? And one of the things that we learned, unfortunately, from the 9/11 disaster is that the combination of different pollutants that result from these spectacular disasters with a combustion of building materials and home materials and all the things that are inside of them can result in unanticipated health effects that are still being studied by NIH-funded studies in New York City. You put it all together, there are concerns. And I'm glad that I'm here to support EFRU. There are some of you who are participating in the research studies that are being conducted. They're important so we can understand the long-term health effects. And I wish you all well, including everybody behind me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andy J. McCalla, spelled A-N-D-E, space J-A-Y-E, and then last name M-A-C-C-A-L-L-A. Hi, my name is Andy J. McCalla. I'm 12 years old, and I was raised here in Altadena. This is my dog, Cammie. She's my first pet, and Cammie is likely dying of toxic exposure. She's only 8 years old, and she was in perfect health before the fire. She got sick within a month of moving back home. We've taken her to the vet so many times I can't count anymore. She has a hard time breathing and makes a really crazy sound when she's trying to clear her lungs. She has a constant runny nose and is sneezing all the time, and it's not likely that she'll ever recover. I've had a similar experience. I'm a PUSD middle school student at Octavia E. Butler. Our schools were closed for a month after the fire, and then we got back. My asthma began majorly flaring up when I returned to school. I couldn't breathe. I had a barking cough. It was hard to speak. I had to go to urgent care multiple times. I went through several rounds of antibiotics, several rounds of steroids. I had to use my nebulizer and inhaler multiple times a day. I was assigned an asthma specialist because we couldn't get my condition under control. My condition has improved, but now I rely on daily medication that was never the case before the fire. Things I've seen at my school also tell me that it might not be safe. I have photos on ash on windowsills and around the classrooms from months after we got back to school. I've taken pictures of soil-contaminated areas. I saw kids playing on the untested, unremediated fields. I'm worried that my school and others are not safe to go to. And I don't want other kids going through what I'm going through. I want it to get better, not worse. Pasadena Unified School District and all schools must conduct comprehensive testing and remediation to ensure that classrooms and campuses meet health and safety standards. What we're asking for is simple: clearance before occupancy.
Good morning. Saludos, everybody. My name is Vladimir Carrasco, Vladimir Carrasco. I'm with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, CHIRLA, one of the oldest and largest immigrant rights organizations in the state of California. We're here today to elevate what we often see happen after disasters, which is the exploitation of those essential workers. Immigrant workers are often called in first after disasters, but are the last to receive protections. And what we're seeing now with this data from EFRU is the confirmation of what happens when workers are left without proper training, without proper licensing, and without the enforcement of these labor protections from the state, county, and OSHA. So now that these workers have had to come in and expose themselves, the crisis has now extended to all residents, and especially tenants who are also not in control of who comes in and remediates their homes. We're here to join the call with EFRU and the residents of the Eaton Fire to call for accountability around remediation and testing, around worker safety, and ensuring that also the insurers, the landlords, all are working together to make sure our homes are safe to move back into. All right, ahora lo voy a hacer en español. Now in Spanish. Cuando el incendio arrasó por esta comunidad, sabíamos que lo que vendría después de este incendio. Lo que pasa después de mucho desastre es que nuestros trabajadores inmigrantes son llamados esenciales, son los primeros en ser llamados para venir a limpiar y recuperar, pero son los últimos en ser protegidos. Estamos aquí con EFRU y CHIRLA para elevar ese impacto a los trabajadores. Es demasiado en los casos de limpieza que vimos que los trabajadores fueron enviados a casas quemadas y zonas contaminadas sin el equipo de protección, sin capacitación y sin licencias para saber qué son los tóxicos que están presentes y cómo limpiarlos correctamente. Entonces estamos aquí para exigirle a OSHA, al condado y al estado que manifiesten esas leyes y enfuercen esas leyes de protección a los trabajadores, pero también para limpiar los hogares efectivamente. Estamos aquí para unirnos a este llamado de verificar antes de habitar. Verificar antes de habitar, porque ahora sabemos que el 96% de las casas todavía se están contaminadas después de este incendio. Entonces, estamos aquí para decir verificar antes de habitar. Gracias.
When we share our stories with data, when we share our stories and our data with local health officials, they mostly just shrug their shoulders and give us blank looks. Worst of all, some government officials have started claiming, despite the data, our homes are safe and that we have nothing to worry about. We've seen what happens when public officials don't take crises like this seriously, when they provide false assurances of safety. Days after 9/11, EPA and elected officials announced the air was safe to breathe. It took years and thousands of first responders, residents, and school children to get sick or die before the toxic exposure was recognized for what it was. But by then it was too late. Same lesson with the burn pits at U.S. military bases. It took years and tens of thousands of soldiers getting sick or dying before toxic exposure was recognized. But then it was too late. It is not too late for us. The survivors of the LA fires, it is not too late for us. But it will be too late if public officials continue to downplay the severity of the danger and force us to live in homes that are silent killers.
Hi, my name is Billy Malone. That's B-I-L-L-Y-M-A-L-O-N-E. My family, we've lived in Altadena for 20 years. It's the only home that our daughter has ever known. That's my family, and this is my extended family. If anyone knows Altadena, we're always in it together, more than any other community. So, thank you to my community. In that time, our family has been involved. I sat on the town council for many years, on the board for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm currently on the board for the Christmas Tree Lane Associations and anything we can do to support our community, along with many other volunteer stuff we've been doing over the years. When the fire came to visit us, me and my next door neighbor, we stayed for 48 hours and fought off the fires with pool water and buckets. For the next 2 weeks, we stayed to defend from looters and to put out spot fires, all during the lockdown. And what did we end up with? A town surrounding us, 360 degrees, that's flattened and empty lots. We tested positive for lead and other contaminants. We had remediation. We tested again for lead and other contaminants, cleaned again, only to find out our house still has large quantities of dust and soot and ash in areas they didn't clean, along with a continuous smell of smoke that's never gone away. My wife is disabled. It has increased her illness, along with having headaches 24/7 after being back in the home, which was only recent, by the way. We were out of the home and basically homeless for up until about a month ago. But instead of helping us, our insurance company said, well, we paid out. We're done. Thank you very much. And we are left to live in a still contaminated house. And we have no choice but to have had to move back because they cut us off from everything else. Now we're left trying to remediate the house ourselves. And we don't know how to do that, but we're learning day by day, and it's going to take months. And we have no choice. And it's all at our own expense. And we actually do what we call the slow burn, which means everything we own, we have to decide whether this is worth keeping and create a health risk for us and our child and our family, or do we throw it away? Every standing structure of people we know has the exact same story, or a story that has exactly the same similar points. This is a crisis. This is a crisis that impacts all of us, those with standing structures and non-standing structures. The insurance companies and media companies at best has given us mediocre work and left us to defend for ourselves. Residents with standing homes and standing structures are actually the economic driver for recovery, because they're the first ones to come back, the first ones to spend multiple hours and days within the community, and they're extremely important for our recovery. This crisis, if it's not addressed, is going to lead to mass illness, long-term health effects, bankruptcy, neighborhood blight, housing crisis, and not counting the continued post-fire deaths that continue to happen to this day and will continue to happen. And we all know those people. It's not just 19, it started with that. I think we're in the hundreds now from suicides and everything else. And that continues to happen. We've waited almost a year for safe homes. We did everything we were supposed to do. We listened to public health. We did what we were supposed to do. We filled out those insurance forms. We did everything that we were supposed to do. And guess what? We still have homes with dangerous contaminants and forced to live there. And insurance companies, they're just walking away saying their job is done. I don't know if anybody
All right, folks, there you have it. A large share of the folks who are saying that they are impacted by the Eaton fire to this day. That was from earlier this year, but they were talking about contamination and the lack of cleanliness, they say, in the cleanup process following before they had to go back into their homes, causing health issues for them. Some issues with the feed. It froze up. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side. We may rejoin this. We may join another feed. We've got a few things that we're watching, including stocks, government shutdown, and travel woes across the nation because of the shutdown. We'll be back in 2. Hi, folks. Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio. We are pivoting to yet another fire update, this one from the Ventura fire from last year, essentially a year ago today. Ventura County Fire Department in California releasing the final report on that destructive wildfire that swept through the county last November. You might remember this was a fire that burned around 20,000 acres. It damaged hundreds of homes and it forced thousands of folks to evacuate in that area. And once again, they've determined the cause and they've got the final findings, which they're sharing with us today.
Risk Information Officer with the Ventura County Fire Department. Thank you all very much for being here this morning. We're here today to discuss the determination of cause of the mountain fire. We'll have two speakers today, Ventura County Fire Chief Dustin Gardner and Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko. Chief Gardner and District Attorney Nasarenko will each make presentations, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. I would ask you to please hold your questions until the Q&A session at the end of the press conference. I'd like to begin by welcoming Fire Chief Dustin Gardner.
Andrew, thank you. And good morning, everybody. For the record, Dustin Gardner. I'm your County Fire Chief. So we're going to start off this presentation today, and we're going to tell a story. We're going to walk through the Balcom Fire and into the mountain fire. I'll start with the very beginning. Our arson investigators have determined the most likely cause of the mountain fire was the extreme winds dislodging a pocket of covered hot tire debris from an earlier fire in the Balcom-Bixby area. The mountain fire was absolutely devastating to our community. To everyone affected by the fire, you have our continued support and compassion. Neighbors to all of us here in Ventura County, you lost homes, you lost possessions, including irreplaceable photos and keepsakes. Others were forced to flee, not knowing whether they would have homes to come back to. It was a heartbreaking and emotional scar that will last longer for all of us than it takes to rebuild anything. I also want to remember and acknowledge and thank all the firefighters, first responders, law enforcement officers, emergency service workers that responded to the mountain fire. Remember, on that first day, we had 11,000 homes impacted by fire. We had thousands of people that had to be evacuated, and we didn't lose a single life. While the mountain fire was absolutely tragic, the loss was tragic to our communities, to many of our own members. We didn't lose any lives, and I am so thankful for that. And a big reason is because of the unified and extraordinary response we had from our firefighters and our law enforcement agencies. And with that, now I'm going to walk you through the Balcom fire and what happened on that October day. So first, remember, the Balcom fire started on October the 30th, 2024 at 2:54 in the afternoon. October 30th was a normal October day. It was 70 degrees, it was partly cloudy, there were light winds, and relative humidities were high. We had a property owner contract with a tractor company to do brush clearing. As you can see, the tractor here in the middle of the field. As they were clearing the brush in the Balcom Canyon area, the tractor operator noticed a fire in the engine compartment and notified 911. Our firefighters responded to the fire at 2:54 in the afternoon and held the Balcom fire at 1.8 acres of grass and light coastal sage. On this fire, our firefighters responded, more than 100 of them responded. We put hand line, we put water line, we put dozer line, and we put retardant line around a 1.8 acre fire. Your firefighters gridded it. More than 100 firefighters walked in a line and gridded that fire after the fire was out with handheld infrared technology called ProBuys, ungloved hands, hand tools, and hose lines. They gridded 100% of that fire in the black and also out into the green. So remember, 1.8 acres, it had wet line around it, it had hand line around it, it had dozer line around it, it had retardant line around it, and your firefighters, more than 100 of them, gridded that fire with hand tools, infrared technology, and ungloved hands feeling for heat. Our incident commanders worked that fire until they believed it was cool and believed it was controlled, and handed it off to our arson investigators. Our arson investigators initiated their investigation into the fire that afternoon and held it until the next day. They did not close their investigation that first day, and this is an important piece. They came back out on October the 31st. When our investigators came out, this is a picture, this is a short video of the mop-up on the 30th, just to see the conditions. There's no wind, there's no clouds. You've got firefighters across the whole piece, and that is the fuels we were dealing with. It's light grass and coastal sage. The next day, on the 31st, our arson investigators came back out to finish their investigation. As part of their investigations, we brought a captain out from our training division that flew a UAV, flew a drone over the fire with two intents. One was to map it, and one was to fly it with an IR infrared technology scan. While he flew the fire, he found 2 points of heat that were of concern. One you'll see, you can't see my little laser, but if you can see, one is here, which if you transcribe that is here, right on a dozer line, and one is here, a set of them around the tractor, which you saw the tractor in the earlier pictures. When they looked at that, with the conditions they had, with the fire intensity they had, with the suppression efforts that were taken, the fire in the cat pile or the dozer line on the edge of the perimeter was a concern. Our arson investigators took hand tools out of their vehicle, they dug it out and suppressed that heat to where they felt it was comfortable. They then had a consultation with our command staff. We looked at the weather, we looked at the fuel conditions, we looked at the fire conditions, we looked at the suppression efforts that we took with hand line, hose line, dozer line, retardant line, and an IR flight around it showing no heat on the perimeter, and we closed the fire. We closed the fire and handed the fire back over to the property owner to have their investigators, their insurance investigator and adjusters come out to take a look at the tractor. As you can see from this picture, and we just wanted to give you this as an example or a picture of what the suppression efforts look like. That's the tractor in the middle. From the black of the tractor to the closest unburned fuel, and again that was stubble that the tractor operator had already ground up, was 203 feet. So that tractor was sitting in the middle of 203 feet. So a question that's going to be asked and has been asked, if we saw heat in that tractor on the second day, why didn't we address it? Heat in a burnt up tractor, a burnt up carcass of steel, thousands of pounds of steel, the second day, that's not alarming. That's not out of the ordinary, and that's nothing that wouldn't be expected. The IR drone flew over it and thought the heat to be about 300 degrees. As an example, if you look at a tailpipe right now, one of these cars pulling in the parking lot, it would be more than 500 degrees. So it was a carcass of steel that had been burnt up, was in the middle of a fire, was more than 200 feet away from the green, and it was hot. And we knew it was hot, and it wasn't alarming to us that it was hot. We expected that. We dealt with the fire on the perimeter, and we looked at the suppression efforts, the fuel type, the fire conditions, the fact that the weather was that day, and let's remember this is the 31st now. We're making decisions in real time on the 31st. We woke up in the morning on the 31st, and the weather was in the high 40s in Selmas. There was dew on the windshields. There was clouds overhead, and we had rain in the forecast. There was actually an 8% chance of rain that day. So that's where our commanders were making decisions. They were making decisions based on the fuel, the fire, and the terrain they were in that day. Our firefighters respond to more than 100 brush fires a year. They respond to more than 1,000 fires a year. They respond to more than 80,000 calls for service a year, and they make decisions based on what they have at the moment. Based on their experience, their education, their knowledge, their wisdom, they make experience and judgment on those decisions. Those decisions led us to closing this incident. Now, following days, on the 31st, the property owners came out, and all of this is now reported through our arson investigators following the mountain fire, and we have confirmation from the property owners that they came out on the 31st and reported seeing no smoke and no fire. On the 1st, the property owners came back out with their insurance company and reported seeing no smoke and no fire. On the 2nd, we had measurable rain in the area. On the 3rd, we had individuals out, property owners and private citizens out in the area and reported seeing no fire, no heat. On the 4th, now we're moving forward. Now the National Weather Service is now issuing a red flag warning. On the 5th, they upgrade that warning to a particular dangerous situation, and the Ventura County Fire Department went into a Plan 2 staffing. We had 100% of our normal staffing. We brought in 10 extra engines, all of our hand crews, all of our bulldozers, all of our helicopters, and an entire command team to prepare for the weather event on the 6th. And then on the morning of the 6th, the mountain fire started. And this is the difference in weather and conditions on the morning of the 6th. The first picture, that's October the 31st. That's the conditions that our commanders were faced with on the morning of 31st. So 1.8 acre fire in grass and light coastal sage, a tractor carcass that had been burnt to the ground. The black around the tires is rubber. That's what you're seeing there. That's black rubber that had been burnt. And you're all going to get a copy of this, so you'll have pictures. We'll have them available to you. The picture on the right is hours after the fire started, the Falcon fire started. And if you notice, all the rubber is gone. All of it is blown away. And 2 hours after the fire started, this is what our investigators found. So our investigators believe it is more likely than not, after an extensive investigation with CAL FIRE and looking at every other possible cause that could have caused the Falcon fire, they believe it's more likely than not that that hot rubber that entombed those tires was blown away when the wind.
All right, folks, we're going to break in here with an update on that Monroe double homicide, the one that we've been following for the last several hours here on Live Impact News. This is the suspect in the case, Adam Latif Mercado. We told you that Monroe police think that he is the person responsible for the death of 2 men inside an apartment on Nelda Drive in Monroe. We've just now learned that through Monroe police confirmation, this is apparently the same man who is considered a suspect in last night's homicide on Central Avenue in Charlotte. So this person, within the span of a couple days, now essentially suspected in these 2 separate death incidents. So to kind of recap here, the Monroe case here that we told you about that happened just around the midnight hour early this morning, Nelda Drive in Monroe, also apparently linked to a CMPD case, a homicide in East Charlotte, after a man was found dead at a business on Thursday. In that case, the man's coworkers say that he was dead at that business on Central Avenue near Oakland Avenue, some sort of warehouse space. Police at the time not confirming how the man died, but apparently was found with some sort of traumatic injuries as they characterized it. And that man identified as 68-year-old Gerald Barnes. So in that case, Mercado charged with first-degree murder and robbery with a dangerous weapon. In the Monroe case, taken into custody, charged with the murders of those 2 men. We'll continue to follow this for you here on Live Impact News and in our evening newscasts coming forward here on WCNC Plus in a couple hours. And with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in 2, folks. All right, folks, you're watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. We want to talk about the very latest with the ongoing government shutdown, now the longest in U.S. history. We are in day 38. Just moments ago, we got an update from Senate Majority Leader John Thune on the potential timeline of negotiations for this new updated spending resolution, if you will. So he does expect, he says, senators to go through the weekend with negotiations, but did expect, he said, the chamber would vote today on a bill to pay the federal workers who've been working during this shutdown. So not really like locking in any specific times, but potentially laying out the next couple of days, some real digging in with the negotiations and potentially some votes happening today. So with that, we're going to take you live to the Senate floor. It looks like Thune himself is actually speaking. Let's listen in.
Who isn't getting paid? I can't believe people come down here and look these people in the eye when he's saying right here, we will pay them not only for today, but for tomorrow and for the entire year, and we won't allow them to be held hostage and be pawns in a political game in the future. And my understanding is the senator from Michigan, on behalf, I suppose, of other Democrats, is objecting to that. Please, please help me understand. This is a straightforward proposal which addresses the concern that millions of Americans have who are headed to food banks and can't pay. This is a straightforward proposal which addresses the concern that millions of Americans have who are headed to food banks and can't pay their rent. And you're coming down here and saying you're going to object because you just want to pay them for yesterday, not for tomorrow or the next day after that. It's about leverage, isn't it? Isn't that what you all been saying? It's about leverage? This isn't leverage. This is the lives of the American people. Senator of Wisconsin has put forward a straightforward proposal to pay people, federal employees, today, tomorrow, and in the future. And what you're essentially saying is, well, I'm fine with paying them for yesterday, but we're not going to pay them for tomorrow or for the day after that, for the future. And we don't seem to care that there are men and women in uniform who are frequenting food banks, who are not making rent payments, or trying to borrow to get by because it's leverage. So, Mr. President, Madam President, I should say, I would hope, we're going to vote on this, so Senator from Michigan can object to the unanimous consent request the Senator from Wisconsin made. But everybody in this chamber is going to be put on the record on whether or not they want to pay federal employees. Not yesterday, but today and tomorrow and into the future. I am tired of the political games. I really am. And so feel free to object to something that I don't know how anybody in their right mind can walk into this chamber, look these people in the eye, and say, we're not going to pay you. So we're going to vote on it. You object to it right now, but everybody in this chamber is going to vote on whether or not they want to pay federal employees, something that every single public employees union has said they support. I yield back to the Senator from Wisconsin.
Reclaiming my time for briefly to reemphasize the fact, if we can pass this now, and again, Senator from Michigan, I'm literally begging you, do not object. Do not object. It's still going to take a couple days to actually pass this. If we have to go the route of motion to proceed, getting on a bill, I mean, that's going to take quite some time. Our skies can't remain at this level right now. We can't continue these airport delays. We can't continue to use public sector employees and the American public in general as pawns in this partisan gamesmanship. So, Lily, I think you know me. You know I'm saying this in good faith. Please do not object. Let this bill pass so the House can come back and sign this into law, and these good people who are forced into work or who have been furloughed can get the pay they deserve. Again, today, tomorrow, and in the future, assured they will never, ever be used like pawns in these partisanship games. But again, I'll underscore, I will not modify my request.
Madam President.
Objection is heard to the modification.
I have
Senator,
not objected yet.
is there an objection to the original request?
Thank you, Madam President. Senator from Wisconsin, I know your intent. You and I have worked on a lot of issues. That's not in question here. We do have problems with some of the language in this bill just to make sure that we have guardrails. I want to pay federal employees. That's why I have the bill that's on the floor right now that I'm trying to move. It will pay federal employees. It'll pay contractors as well. You're not doing that, I understand. Everybody who is being shorted right now should be paid, and that's what my legislation does. So we could do that. You know, I'm happy if you want to take my legislation and put your name on it, I'll support it, and we'll pass it right now and send it there, and people are going to get paid. So if you really want to do that, we could do that today. Would you want me to just to put your name on this bill and then we'll pass it? That would be fine to do that. But folks are, excuse me, I haven't reclaimed. So we can make that happen. And if you put it on the floor later, we'll go through the process. I would hope that you and I, during that process, could work on language to perhaps address some of the concerns that I have. It's not that we pay people. That's not my concern. I wouldn't be offering this legislation here today if I was concerned about that. I want them paid. Labor unions support my bill, too. No surprise. They're getting paid. And that's why I've introduced it. This is not a political game. I hope we get the shutdown opened. I hope we're able to find common ground to say that we want to lower the cost of Americans of affordable health care, that we don't want to see their premiums go up and people lose insurance. I hope we can do that. It's not a game. I don't see this as leverage. Now, a president who refuses to release SNAP funds to feed people, now that is what is irresponsible and irreprehensible leverage. Money's available to feed people right now, and this president is saying no. The court has ordered him to put that money into food, and he says, I'm going to appeal it. That is absolutely despicable that the President of the United States wants to starve children in order to get his way. We got to move beyond that. We got to find common ground. I hope we can find common ground in this bill. My bill is just plain, simple, clean, no games, no other language. We know we have to have guardrails when we have a lawless president. We better put some guardrails in. He walks over Congress all the time. My colleagues on the Republican side, just let him walk over Congress all the time. I don't know why you ran for office if you just want to be run over by a president. We're a co-equal branch of government. We're here to represent the people of our states. So let's work together, be thoughtful about this, understand that if Congress puts this law forward, it actually goes the way we want, and we don't have a president that basically thumbs their nose at members of the Senate and the House and do what he wants, and he knows the Republicans will say, oh, well, that's fine. We're just here to rubber stamp. That's what we're here for. So let's hope we can work together to get this right, pay employees. They should be. They have a right to that. And I think we can do this if we can get together and get beyond the rhetoric and games we're here and the leader that I heard. It's also on this side as well. So let's work together. Let's open up this government. Let's end this shutdown. Let's make sure people have affordable health care in this country. Let's make sure our employees get paid. Let's do all of that this weekend. I'm on board for all that. Hopefully we can get it done.
Is there objection to the original request?
Madam President.
Objection is heard. Senator from Wisconsin.
So again, let me correct, I hate to say falsehoods, just presented here in the chamber. My bill is completely silent in terms of presidential authority. The senator from Michigan, I know they wanted to put language in there to restrict presidential authority, but the fact of the matter is, and I made him well aware of this, that's a bill that would never be signed into law. So if you're serious about actually paying the workers, you'll recognize the fact, admit that my bill is completely silent. It does not add, it does not detract from presidential authority. There's nothing in the bill that does that. Secondly, we tried to come accommodations with a number of senators from the other side for a couple of weeks. Pretty much fell on deaf ears. So again, I know it is unfortunate that he objected right now, and if we proceed and vote and actually get on the bill, and I hope at least we do that, that will take quite some time. So seeing as he's already objected, what I am happy to do, not happy, I'm very disappointed I'm going to have to do this, but we'll look at their language. If it's acceptable, and again, if he is doing anything with presidential authority, adding or detracting, that won't be signed into law. It's a fruitless exercise. But if we can accept their language, we'll look at it, and then maybe we can come back down here, do another unanimous consent request, and pass this today. That is what I hope we can do. So we'll look at the language. It's very unfortunate we didn't pass it right now, but maybe later this afternoon we can do so. With that, I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Oregon.
I appreciate that my colleagues from Wisconsin and Michigan are striving to find a path to make sure that folks are paid. Folks who are working should be paid. Folks who are furloughed should be paid. But here is the problem with the proposal from my colleague from Wisconsin. And that is we have a president right now that is violating the Constitution. Every time you hear the President of the United States say, hey, I'm ending that program because it's not in alignment with my priorities, or a cabinet member who says, we're going to kill those grants because they're not in alignment with the president's priorities. What you are hearing is an authoritarian statement in violation of the Constitution. So in recognition, we have an out-of-control tyrant in the Oval Office violating the Constitution. We have a responsibility right here to defend the Constitution. And that's exactly why my colleague from Michigan put those protections into the bill. If you have a president who chooses what programs are funded and not, that is an authoritarian country, and that's what we have right now. The whole vision of our nation was founded on these senators and these House members coming from different districts and different states with different life experiences and different geographic interests, and bringing them to forge a consensus or forge a vision of how to address the challenges in every part of our nation. Not to have one person down Pennsylvania Avenue who knows a little bit about New York and a little bit about Florida, has a certain one point of view, be a tyrant. Martial law would be empowered by the proposal from Wisconsin. And that's why my colleague from Michigan was absolutely right to ensure we here in the Senate defend the Constitution. Thank you.
All right, folks, looks like there's a lull in the discussion there on the Senate floor, but you can kind of see through some of our headlines of the day here on day 38 of the ongoing federal government shutdown. Discussions likely to happen through the weekend amongst senators, a bill that would be on the table to pay federal workers who have been going without pay during the shutdown. There's, as you heard kind of here with a few of the senators who were speaking, discussion about how to ensure payment in the future. And this as flight reductions are underway as we speak due to the shutdown. Turning now to a new live feed we're seeing, looks like this is coming to us at the National War College within the National Defense University. This is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing changes in how the military Pentagon will procure weapons going forward.
Gave that speech on 9/11, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan began. As a result, Secretary Rumsfeld never quite had the full opportunity to implement many of his reforms. To quote him, or paraphrase him again, "We went to war with the army we had, not the army he or we wanted." Today, the need for Pentagon transformation, not just reform, is even more urgent than it was when Secretary Rumsfeld spoke those words nearly a quarter century ago. And his words are just as true now as they were then. The threat environment we face is advanced and multifaceted. Technology is evolving at an accelerated pace. The information landscape has become increasingly segmented and personal, and exploited by our enemies. Many of our adversaries, as you know, don't wear uniforms and use civilians as human shields. Our enemies often activate under the threshold of armed conflict, the gray zone, and intend to destroy us from within. The world seems smaller and more familiar, yet at the same time, more complex. As I alluded to in my Quantico speech a few weeks ago, today we're undertaking a department-wide transformation of requirements, acquisition, and foreign military sales, addressing a core function of what we do at the War Department, identifying what our warfighters need, how we buy those capabilities, and then how we share those capabilities with our allies and partners, all in service of decisively winning any war that we must wage. For too long, our department has been hampered by a bureaucracy bogged down by burdensome and inefficient processes, paralyzed by impossible risk thresholds, and distracted by agendas that have nothing to do with warfighting. Naturally, such a system gives rise to a certain culture within the organization, and people adapt to that culture in order to thrive within it. The institution shapes the individuals as much as the individuals shape the institution. It becomes mutually reinforcing, and over time, the prevailing pattern becomes more and more entrenched, risk-averse, and immovable, to the point that the whole psychology of the department is stuck in a system in which process, not outcomes, matter the most. Previous administrations have tried and failed to address these issues, seeking to go around the process rather than confront it head-on, leaving our military and our industrial base weaker as a result. The department's perverse process has in turn fostered a culture in today's defense industrial base that makes it unlike any other American market, uniquely tailored to the Pentagon in the worst way. Unstable demand signals, uncertain projections, and volatile customer base has caused the defense industry to adopt the same entrenched, risk-averse, and lethargic culture that we have in government. The result, an absence of urgency, a fear of innovation, and a fundamental lack of trust between the military customer and our limited, more limited than it should be, defense industrial base. What's worse, the defense industry financially benefits from our backwards culture. Schedule overruns, huge order backlogs, and too predictable cost increases become the norm. Our military and our taxpayers need a defense industrial base that it can count on to scale with urgency in a crisis, not one that is content to wait for money before taking urgent action. This relates to the whole industrial base, and most importantly to the large primes that need a defense industrial base that it can count on to scale with urgency in a crisis, not one that is content to wait for money before taking urgent action. This relates to the whole industrial base, and most importantly to the large primes that we do business with today. These large defense primes need to change to focus on speed and volume and to invest their own capital to get there. If we do that, the Department of War is, of course, big-time supportive of profits. We are capitalists, after all. It's been the department's fault for far too long that we're in this predicament. And it will take a focused and sustained effort to succeed, and succeed we must. We will no longer ignore the plank in our own eye. The goal of this speech is not to name and shame people or companies or departments. Many of you have done important and patriotic work for our nation and this department for years. Many for decades. But rather, I wanted the opportunity to look you, my fellow patriots, straight in the eye and tell you how important you are. You will determine whether we deliver for our warfighters. You will determine whether we win our next war. Either you, our companies, our industries, our defense industrial base deliver, or we fail. It is literally life or death. Every dollar squandered on redundancy, bureaucracy, and waste is a dollar that could be used to outfit and supply the warfighter. We must wage an all-out campaign to streamline the Pentagon's process, to unshackle our people from unproductive work, and to shift our resources from the bureaucracy to the battlefield. Our objective is simple. Transform the entire acquisition system to operate on a wartime footing, to rapidly accelerate the fielding of capabilities and focus on results. Our objective is to rebuild the arsenal of freedom. American industry and its innovative spirit are begging to be unleashed to solve our most complex and dangerous warfighting problems. We need to get out of our own way, out of your way, and enter into real partnership with you, rather than overprescribe and decelerate your natural progress. In turn, industry needs to perceive business with the Department of War from the perspective of growth and assume risk to partner with the United States. Speed and a focus on outcomes are fundamental to successful deterrence. Our warfighters require the depth of capabilities to deter any aggression and, if necessary, decisively defeat any enemy that dares to challenge America. We're talking here about transformation, not toothless reform, and we're seeking it fast. Now, some will say that any effort to reform the Pentagon bureaucracy is punishment for real or perceived slights. We think that's nonsense. I'm not here to punish, we're here to liberate. I'm not here to reform, but to transform and empower. We mean to save the bureaucracy from itself. Because the chairman and I talk about this all the time. This is a 1939 moment. Or hopefully a 1981 moment. A moment of mounting urgency. Enemies gather, threats grow, you feel it, I feel it. If we are going to prevent and avoid war, which is what we all want, we must prepare now. Our adversaries are not sitting idly by, they're moving fast. They're developing and delivering new capabilities at a rate that should be sobering to every American, especially those who work in the Pentagon and in the defense industrial base. Their ambitions and intentions are bold. Their actions speak volumes, and frankly, at times we've been too damn slow to respond. But before we get too far along, when it comes to transformation, let me give some credit where credit is due. President Trump has led on this, issued 4 executive orders directing transformation of defense acquisition, spurring innovation of the defense industrial base in particular, and the entire federal procurement process and foreign military sales in general. That's because the president recognizes one simple fact: America's military is the greatest in the world by far, and we must keep it that way. Our Commander-in-Chief is leading the way, affording us, this is what is so key in any effort like this, affording us the top cover to do big, hard, and necessary things quickly. Members of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee, on a bipartisan basis, have advanced proposals to reform Pentagon procurement through the SPEED Act and the Forged Act. Through their close collaboration and extensive exchanges with Congress, much of what we are planning and announcing directly reflects the insight and reform ideas that have emerged from those ongoing partnerships. Many of the changes we're implementing today are the direct result of those congressional engagements, and we look forward to continuing this vital collaboration as we transform the department. So I want to thank Chairman Wicker and Chairman Rogers, especially for their leadership on these issues. Together, these...
All right, folks, pivoting away from this announcement from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, discussing some changes in how U.S. military will procure weapons going forward. We're going to take a quick break, folks. On the other side, we may rejoin with this live feed if it is still with us on the other side of the break. Otherwise, we've got some other feeds we're watching. We've got some updates to share, government shutdown related, travel related, and some local headlines too. We'll see you in 2 minutes, folks. Welcome back, folks, to Live Impact News. Before we get to some of our live feeds, we do want to check in with the weather impacts of the day. In general, it's been a pretty delightful day, but let's see what the weekend has in store.
Well, good Friday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. Now, the first full week of November, it was gorgeous, wasn't it? Not only did it look nice, but boy, those temperatures were very mild. Now, as we're heading into the first full weekend of the new month, you can plan for much of the same. Partly sunny skies for our Friday forecast and warm temperatures. We'll see those daytime highs today rise back into the 70s. Plan for mid-70s both Saturday and Sunday. Could see an isolated shower or two, but then next week, let me tell you, you need to prepare for winter-like conditions. It is going to be a cold start to the new work week. For now, though, let's focus on the good. Yesterday, we topped off at 72 degrees, and today we're forecasting about 71. Across the area, we're just going to see a mix of 60s and 70s, a little warmer to the south of Charlotte with forecasted highs right around 73 out there in Lancaster. If you're heading out to the Charlotte FC game tonight, should be a whole lot of fun. Temperatures will be mild. There's about 5, 6 o'clock, upper 60s still, but once the sun sets tonight, it is going to feel a little chilly. So grab the sweatshirts, maybe a light jacket. You'll want that this evening. Otherwise, mid-70s for our Saturday, same exact temperature for Sunday with partly sunny conditions. And as far as the rain chances go, we don't have any today in Charlotte. Saturday and Sunday, small chances, only about a 20% chance. And then after that, those rain chances really drop throughout the rest of next week. So here's our big picture perspective, our futurecast. We have multiple fronts pushing through the Carolinas, really not seeing a ton of moisture with them. But here's the thing, once the rain falls, most of the rain that is expected to fall is going to fall while we're asleep. So into the overnight hours or early in the morning. But for the most part, it's going to be nice and dry and actually quite nice during the daytime hours. This secondary cold front is going to bring with it a lot of cooler air, and with that we could even see a little bit of mountain snowfall. So we'll keep you up to date with that. Let's walk you through our futurecast. We're going to slow things down and localize it a bit more. So here's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, picking up the kids after school. A great day to send them outside to play as it is going to be sunny and nice. And then overnight tonight, here's about 11 o'clock, starting to see those rain showers push into the mountains, then into the Charlotte metro area. But notice when 7 o'clock rolls around on Saturday, by the time most of us start moving around and starting our day, the rain is already out of our area, and the rest of Saturday, it looks fantastic. So if you have any plans, no big problems. But then just like clockwork, here's Saturday night at 11 o'clock, we'll start to see another round of rain and possibly a few storms push through the area, mainly south of Charlotte. And if any of those storms form, I don't think they'll have a severe weather component to them, but we could see a brief heavy downpour. The big story after that will be Monday and into Tuesday. This Arctic blast of cold air sweeps across the U.S. and yes, that does include the Carolinas, going from 75 degrees on Sunday to 47 for our high on Monday. And with those cold highs, be ready for those chilly lows with below freezing temperatures. In the mountains, teens and low 20s early next week. And again, our first freeze of the season is expected on Tuesday. So if you have any sensitive plants, make sure they are prepared. Wind chills feeling even colder than our actual air temperature. By Tuesday morning, here's 7 o'clock, we'll be waking up, getting those kids out the door, maybe to the school bus stop. It's going to feel like we're into the single digits up in the mountains. There's that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Plenty of sunshine. Bottom line, enjoy the next 3 days with those above average temperatures and lots going on this weekend around town. We are weather impact Monday and Tuesday because that big drop in temperatures.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Our weather impact team will be keeping us updated on the very latest as we go in through the coming days, of course, with the big drop in temps as well. We will turn indeed back to this live feed we've been monitoring over the last several minutes with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing changes to how the military procures its weapons.
Manufacturing at the speed of ingenuity to deliver rapidly and reliably for our warfighters. And fifth, regulatory reform. We will remove excessive and burdensome FAR and DFARS rules, reporting requirements, accounting standards, excessive testing oversight, excessively long studies and analysis. Anything that unnecessarily slows down government contracts will be eliminated. So the bottom line is this. These changes will move us from the current prime contractor-dominated system defined by limited competition, vendor lock, cost-plus contracts, stressed budgets, and frustrating protests to a future powered by a dynamic vendor space that accelerates production by combining investment at a commercial pace with the uniquely American ability to scale quickly. Taken together, we will rebuild the defense industrial base into a new arsenal of freedom. What we're doing today marks a new horizon for how we acquire and deliver warfighting capabilities. We are prioritizing speed, flexibility, competition, and calculated risk-taking. We will buy commercial solutions to the maximum extent possible, practicable, and will ensure our systems can produce at scale and relentlessly focus on delivering modern lethal weapons to our warfighters. End of story. To fix this entire process, we need to fix the heart of it all, which is requirements. For decades, our requirements process, under the name, and you know it well, Joint Capabilities Integration Development System, or JCIDS, has become an inefficient bureaucratic system in need of a complete overhaul. Which is why today, at my direction, we are transforming the department's process for joint requirements determination. Re-envisioning the requirements process is a decisive step in rebuilding the nation that once led the world in turning ideas into combat power, thoughts into lethality. I am canceling JCIDS, which moved at the speed of paperwork, not war. To put it plainly, JCIDS became a years-long bureaucratic anchor that dragged us down while our adversaries surged ahead with purpose and precision. JCIDS was focused on defining systems requirements, staffing them through countless oversight boards, and then locking them down, while threats and technologies continued to evolve. To validate requirements documents, JCIDS often took over 300 days. Yes, 300 days to close to one whole year just to approve a single document. By the time it got stamped, and it probably was stamped, the threat had changed and the warfighters' needs had shifted. The process was so complicated that there is a 400-page manual, instruction manual, just to understand it, imposing endless templates and layers for review. JCIDS had dozens of reviewers and sign-offs and hundreds of comments to approve a single document. It's its own ecosystem, most of which added little to no value. We tried to please everyone, so we chased consensus instead of clarity. It became a go-along to get along process. The result? Overspecified requirements that satisfy everyone and serve no one. A process built to serve the process. Our industry partners know the biggest obstacle isn't technology, it's our processes. Requirements are unclear or overly prescriptive and even contradict themselves, like that last sentence. They're either so rigid that they strangle innovation or so vague that nobody knows what done actually looks like. Contractors waste time guessing instead of building. The result, cost overruns, frustration on both sides, and delayed delivery to the warfighter. What industry is asking for is simple: clear, stable problem statements, provided early enough to plan, hire, and train the workforce, and then invest in capital modernization. We rarely engage innovators early, and when we do, the process tries to retrofit their ideas into outdated formats. Existing industry partners who understand the cumbersome process don't even bother to innovate. They know there is no upside to innovation. Rigid standards and archaic templates choke the agility that we need. That's why innovation groups.
All right, folks, we're going to pivot back to the Senate floor at this point as ongoing discussions continue over the government shutdown. Looks like we have Democrat Chuck Schumer speaking. Keep in mind, we have just heard within the last hour or two that negotiations are expected to continue through the weekend. Let's listen in.
Until after the government reopens. All Republicans have to do is say yes to extend current law for 1 year.
Rigid standards and archaic
and
templates
since what we're
choke the
proposing
agility that we need.
is only a simple extension of current law, the Senate.
All right, folks, we're having some issues with the audio there. We did want to draw your attention to a box that we had put in the bottom right corner of your screen for just a moment as we were listening to the Defense Secretary. There it is. And I know when we see red on the board, that's not always a great thing, and we don't think rally. But considering where the Dow was earlier today with a drop of about 200 points at one point, you can see the very bottom of the red. It is now coming back up, and now, considering where we were, I'll say just now in the negative territory by about 40 points on the day. We're not quite sure exactly what's driving this. However, we suspect government shutdown talks might have a lot to do with some of the sentiment, as well as we know trade usually has an impact, but hearing there's a timeline and seemingly a path forward for the negotiations with the shutdown, we suspect that might be playing a role with what we're seeing. And now, even as we speak, as we get closer and closer to closing bell at 4 o'clock, you can see now -10 on the day. and it still continues to climb, getting into single digits now. We'll keep an eye on things. We'll see if we actually get into the green on the day. We'll keep an eye as well on the NASDAQ, which is hitting, a little bit harder with the red because of its tech-heavy nature, and tech and AI concerns seem to be dragging down sentiment on the day. So we'll watch that. Meantime, we'll get back to the Senate floor. We fixed our audio issues, and we'll listen in now.
Extension of a clean bill that's law now. It's expired. It's just an extension of an existing law dealing with tax credits. And over the next year, we can figure out a long-term solution to the health care challenge that we're facing as a country. This proposal opens the government and ensures that families who are shopping right now for their health care can get immediate financial relief at a time when costs are driving families to make incredibly difficult financial decisions. And we believe that while we're trying to figure out a long-term solution to the health care crisis, people should not be penalized. People should not be suffering. Give the relief that they need now, and over the next year, we'll work together to find a more comprehensive solution. We know that right now our nation is experiencing a health care crisis where costs are skyrocketing and too many Americans are risking losing their coverage. Too many Americans are struggling to choose between food or gas or health care. And it's not just Americans in blue states, let's be clear. Families in every state across the country are paying these prices. Every one of us have families that are experiencing this now in our states. But we can take action today to give our constituents some immediate financial relief and prevent them from being priced out of the insurance market. We all want to end the shutdown. We want to ensure that government services can continue, and we want to ensure our hardworking federal employees get the pay that they have earned. But Democrats have made clear since day one that in order to get the votes that Republicans need, we must address the health care crisis. Because the American people have made it clear they want Congress to take action on this issue, it's literally life or death for far too many American families. I know many of my Republican colleagues want to work on this issue too. I've had conversations with so many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who want to try to figure out how we fix this. But they've said repeatedly we won't negotiate until government reopens. Leader Thune has said, quote, "Give us the votes to open up the government. Then we will have a conversation about some of these issues that you want to discuss." And I think health care is certainly something we are anxious to all talk about, end of quote. And perhaps most importantly, even President Trump has said he'd be happy to work with Democrats on health care policies, but only once the government is reopened. Well, I agree with my Republican colleagues. It's not realistic to reform a major health care policy in just a few days. That's not going to happen. And I respect Leader Thune and President Trump's desire to work on this when the government is reopened. And I'm willing to compromise on that. My colleagues are willing to compromise this, and it's something that can be done today if we need to. But our Republican colleagues have to be willing to compromise too. Compromise is a two-way street. And they have shown us that and we want them to show us that these are not just empty words, that they really are willing to compromise, and they do want to take action. So that's why we've put forward this very simple proposal. Extend the tax credits for 1 year. We are not asking to make any major changes to the current law. Just extend that to protect people who are suffering right now and are hurting. We're just asking to keep the credits in place for 1 year so that families can see some immediate financial relief from the costs that are going through the roof, so that they can make important decisions about buying their health care right now during open enrollment. This is live. People are dealing with this situation as we speak. We can fix this. If we care about making sure families can afford their health care, we should all agree on that. We should get 100 votes here for people to say we're going to do everything we can to protect health care for Americans. And we can do that right now. And we can open up government right now. We can pay employees. We can move this country forward if we do that. All we need is a very simple extension of a law that's already existed for some time. We know that from the start that any deal will ultimately have to be a compromise. It doesn't have to be unanimous. There'll be likely folks on both sides that may feel uncomfortable with this, and I get that, and that's the way this place works. But our proposal would try to work in a bipartisan way by creating a bipartisan committee that will continue negotiations on reforms ahead of next year's enrollment process. So we're not pulling the rug out from underneath families. We're going to do it ahead of time so folks know exactly what to expect going forward. So I'm telling you now, Madam President, if we vote for this compromise today, we could open up government. This could all be behind us. Families could get some certainty for their future for the next year while we look at long-term solutions. The government can open, but it takes all of us just to say we're willing to compromise for the good of the country. My colleagues are standing here saying we are willing to compromise for the good of the country. I just hope my Republican colleagues agree.
Mr. President, or Madam President.
Senator from Vermont.
There's a lot of focus on what divides us, but the real opportunity here is what unites us. We're having a contest here with this shutdown where our side is very concerned about what happens to these tax credits. Your side is very concerned about using a shutdown as a tactic. I think we both have pretty valid arguments, and one of the reasons I think there's merit in our position is the reality that once the December 31st deadline arrives, people literally are going to lose health care. So what unites us? Both sides really do want to have all of government paid, and we want to be reopened. And both sides, I believe, want to make certain that the people we represent continue to have access to health care, that the health care they had in 2025, they're going to have in 2026. That won't happen unless we resolve this. And given the time crunch, the only way, as a practical matter, we can do something that helps the people you represent and helps the people I represent is extend what we have for another year. So it's not an overreach on the part of, say, folks who want a single-payer health care system. It's not overreach or diminishing any concerns folks on the Republican side, and by the way, on our side, have about the cost of health care. We are in a practical crunch where unless this United States Senate acts, the people we represent are going to lose health care. That's the fact. That's just the fact. It's the way it is. And we've talked about how those premium increases are going to spike. So what do we do in this situation where Leader Thune, who we trust, who we respect, is taking a position that we won't have discussions until we reopen government? Why do we object to that or have cautions about that? We trust Leader Thune. We trust our Republican colleagues. But what happens after it goes out of the Senate? We have no guarantee whatsoever it'll be taken up in the House at all. So the question that a farmer in Vermont would ask me at the end of any agreement is, Peter, what does this mean? Will I get my health care in 2026? And unless we have it where it's going to get a vote with some support from our colleagues in the House, the answer is I don't know, but I hope so. So we find ourselves with January 1st here, and that farmer, that small business person, not having health care. And again, this is the lament I have. What we're trying to do here, the folks who are going to benefit or not suffer are Republicans who voted for Trump and Democrats who voted for Harris and independents who didn't like either candidate at all. So we have an opportunity. And actually, we're the only people in the United States of America who have an opportunity. The only people, it's us, who've been entrusted by the people who we represent with their vote to solve this problem. And what I think is being proposed has a quality that's rare around here. It's restraint. We're not trying to overreach. We're just trying to say, maintain the status quo so that the folks in America who are getting their health care with the help of some tax credits will continue to have that health care in 2026 as they have it in 2025. So I hope we can come together for this temporary fix. And by the way, I just want to say the cost of health care is exploding. And we have an obligation, if we want to maintain access to health care, to address that. It's not a solution to deal with the health care crisis by taking people off of health care. They still get sick. So when our leader says that we want this bipartisan committee to address the cost of health care, we are sincere about that, because the biggest threat to the continued access to health care is the exploding cost of health care. I yield to my colleague from Wisconsin.
All right, folks, and there you have it. Some more discussions on the Senate floor as they continue to talk here about ending the ongoing government shutdown now in day 38. You just heard actually a few moments ago discussion about health care. This actually comes as we're learning that Democrats have essentially named what they would want in order to essentially give their votes to end the shutdown. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying today that they would like 1-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which we know that they've been hammering in on the Democrat side on health care. And this comes as we also are seeing expectations that these dialogues will continue into the weekend. Side note here, we do see now the Dow Jones in the green as we suspected it could do based on the trends we were watching after a big plummet earlier today, down about 200 points. You can see it's now in the green, plus 36 on today's session. That said, S&P 500 and NASDAQ are still in the red, although they have cut their losses quite a bit since we've saw that huge dip earlier today. More to come on the other side of the break, folks. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Live Impact News. Welcome back, folks. We've got some breaking news from our roadways to let you know about here on Live Impact News. A crash reported on I-85 northbound in Gaston County. We know already kind of a tricky area for congestion. Now we are seeing some blockage to the lanes, which certainly isn't helping. This is northbound direction, so it's heading into the Charlotte area from Gaston County. It's near Main Street, rather close to that overpass, that bridge over the Catawba River. Backing up at this point to the exit for Chester Street, York Street, essentially Highway 321. So for folks who are heading that way, make sure you're planning for some delays or taking an alternate route. Keep in mind, as we usually see with this area, which is kind of tricky to navigate the congestion, you see some of the alternate roadways that are usual suspects near 85 starting to back up as well. It's likely lots of folks are using those detours. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. Clearing is expected close to the 3 o'clock hour. I know that's just a few minutes away. However, keep in mind there's usually a ripple effect from backup. When we have lane closures, it takes a while for traffic to recover. As we get more information, we'll keep it here for you on Live Impact News and also on our newscast at 4 o'clock if there are any updates to share on that front as far as injuries are concerned and such. So with that, let's go ahead and turn you back to the live feed we've been keeping an eye on with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing here changes in weapons procurement for the U.S. military.
Specification compliance. We're not just buying something. We're solving life and death problems for our warfighters. We're not building for peacetime. We are pivoting the Pentagon and our industrial base to a wartime footing. Building for victory should our adversaries FAFO. That's why today, at my direction, the Department of War is delivering a plan to streamline test and evaluation requirements. Testing early and often is essential at certain stages of development, but testing for the sake of testing inhibits progress and delays delivery. We will shine a light on performance standards as well, which is why today, at my direction, we are mandating portfolio scorecards with primary performance measures focusing on what truly matters: the time it takes to put weapons in the hands of our men and women who use it if and when necessary. We'll also continue to focus on operational availability and mission capability rates of our current weapon systems. Far too many of our systems are not available to fight right now, as they languish in depots and shipyards for repairs and maintenance, or wait years for parts and the prime contractor to repair the system. We will maximize the number of weapon systems that are available for conflict. The faster we can deliver modern weapon systems, the faster we can retire decades-old legacy systems. We will tailor other measures to each portfolio's specific needs. No hiding, no excuses. Results will be clear and drive improvement, and everyone is responsible for raising opportunities for improvement. Speed and volume will rule. We will foster competition, embrace modularity, and pursue multi-source procurements at every opportunity, moving fast to contract, test, scale, and deploy when a solution is clear. We will strive to maintain at least 2 qualified sources for critical program components. We will minimize getting ourselves into single-source situations where contractors have monopoly power over a key warfighting capability. We will enable third-party integration without prime contractor bottlenecks. Success will be measured by the ability of qualified vendors to independently develop, test, and integrate replacement modules at the component level throughout the system life cycle. There's no more complacency and no more monopolies. To make competition easier, we will increase incentives for component-level competition. This is about more than optics. It's about delivering better components at lower cost. Multi-track acquisition is the future. Now, I'm not talking about 2 sources that were bought out by the same prime to give the illusion of choice. I'm talking about meaningful choice, where quality and speed matter and where prices go down. Moreover, today, at my direction, commercial products and offerings will be the default policy. We will enhance the presumption of commerciality. Within 90 days, we will issue guidance that demands a commercial-first and alternative proposals policy to enhance flexibility. We will harness more of America's innovative companies to focus their talent and their technologies on our toughest national security problems. We're leaving too much on the cutting room floor. We want them to deliver novel solutions to our warfighters so that we have an overwhelming advantage in future wars. Our goal, as you know, is to never enter a fair fight. The bottom line is we're buying solutions, not specifications. We will evaluate results, not paperwork. If a better solution exists outside the traditional channels, we will find it and we will acquire it. And that is why, as part of this transformation today, at my direction, we are establishing the Wartime Production Unit, or WPU, at the Department of War. This new unit has been redesigned from the existing Joint Production Acceleration Cell and will focus on transforming how we accelerate the delivery of critical capabilities to our warfighters. We will accomplish this by leveraging a dedicated deal team, empowered to forging groundbreaking business deals that revolutionize production capacity and completely overhaul contract execution. The deal team will reinforce our contracting workforce, enabling them to work with newly empowered PAEs to negotiate with vendors based on a broader perspective of the vendor's total book of business within the department, rather than through the lens of a single program, creating leverage and incentives not previously applied. This deal team will craft financial incentives that drive contractor performance, demanding on-time delivery of the weapons our warfighters desperately need. It's about faster negotiations, better results, and a commitment to complete transparency and cooperation between the government and our industry partners. The Wartime Production Unit will manage and execute direct support for our top acquisition production priorities. To ensure that we have the best minds in the business, we will bring in a wide variety of the nation's most talented experts to advise on industrial production optimization. We have already been doing this, we are doing it, and it's been led by the Deputy Secretary of War, and the results thus far have been fantastic. We plan to scale it and scale it quickly. Many talented operators are already on board at the Pentagon. Former industry executives who are serving our country to drive success. We call them Business Operators for National Defense, or BOND. I encourage those listening who are interested to reach out if you have the skills to contribute to the defense industrial renewal we are embarking on. This may seem like an obvious change, but it's new for our department to empower world-class operators to help drive necessary change from the Pentagon to industry. This initiative is not a pilot program. It's a fundamental shift in how we arm our warfighters. We are committed.
Folks, we're going to break in here with an update coming to NTSB right now. Officials there giving us a look at the very latest information from that Louisville plane crash.
By this, we know as each day it goes a little bit farther, it becomes a lot tougher. We're still in the fact-gathering phase of our investigations, and I want to recap a few things that we've already accomplished so far. Most importantly, to present again Shi-Hoon Shin, that's C-H-I-H-O-O-N-S-H-I-N, who is our investigator in charge. I also want to make sure we thank all of the first responders. As I said yesterday, Louisville EMA director and the other individuals have been extraordinary in this. The airport authority, the elected officials, the community has truly come together. And I know Louisville is suffering, but they've really shown their ability to work through this tragedy and to assist us in trying to find out what happened. Again, our role is not to speculate on the cause of why we're here. We want to know what happened and why it happened. And the most important thing is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. As a reminder, earlier, as we said, we believe we may know the exact debris field, but if anyone has located any debris in their yard or knows anything, they can contact us at witness@ntsb.gov. That is witness@ntsb.gov. And today we conducted another family briefing for those survivors on the ground, or for those that have a family or others on the ground. It took several hours. We went through a lot of information. You can obviously tell it's a very tough time for them. I personally spent several hours at the debris field, and I can tell you the debris field itself is still active in more ways than one. In fact, while we were there with the emergency management coordinator, there were some spot fires that were popping up in some compressed paper products and emitting a lot of smoke. There's still hundreds of feet of hose line that are spread throughout there in preparation for anything else that may be needed. One of the reasons why some people might ask, not everything's been put out, is putting additional water on there or additional firefighting apparatus can disturb the scene. So they've been great to work with us. I would also mention there are over 100 first responders at the scene, along with others that are helping to secure it, and that is ongoing. Collectively, we've identified over 500 people that have responded or involved in the investigation to this point. I'm going to give you some specific information that we have that we've been able to come up with so far. The cockpit voice recorder contained 2 hours and 4 minutes of what we consider good quality digital recorded audio. In reviewing that audio, the crew completed their standard checklists and briefings in preparation for the flight. The takeoff roll was what we called uneventful through the different speed callouts. About 37 seconds after the crew called for takeoff thrust, a repeating bell was heard on the CVR, which persisted until the end of the recording 25 seconds later. During this time, the crew engaged in efforts to attempt to control the aircraft before the crash. The NTSB will now be forming a CVR group comprised of technical experts on the MD-11 at the NTSB headquarters in order to review the recording and produce a written transcript. Now, this CVR transcript will be made public only when a majority of the other factual reports are placed in the NTSB public docket for this accident, and that will be several months from now. Additionally, in regard to the plane itself, the bulk of the left engine pylon was still attached to the left engine when the engine separated from the wing. Both of those components are in a secured facility and undergoing further examination. We have conducted additional searches in the grass area adjacent to runway 17R and are beginning to find additional pieces of the engine attachment. Additionally, later today, they will be doing another sweep using metal detectors and other types of apparatus. We have also completed a LiDAR scan of the topography, of the debris field, the airfield, and that is assisting us a lot with a lot of other technical equipment that's been brought in for aerial recreation. We also are utilizing the FBI in assisting us with making safe a number of potential hazards for our investigation. This is very normal in an aircraft investigation. There are a lot of things such as compressed bottles, fuel suppression, or fire suppression materials. Those have to be made safe before we can disturb some of those areas. Yesterday, they made safe approximately 1/2 of them, and we've identified what we believe to be over 30, so that process is still ongoing today. I can say today we have been working in a full operational cadence except for a short amount of time due to potential lightning around the field. The safety of everyone at the location and working on this accident is paramount. But even with that work going on, we still understand the importance of the recovery of those who are still missing, and we were making sure that we are identifying any areas that may have potential victims and making sure that we're trying to prioritize so that the coroner and the medical examiner can obviously do their work. As you may have seen, or you may not have seen, but we actually sent a tweet out about the last 30 minutes, and so I want to make sure we read that for you so you know. During yesterday's media briefing, the preliminary information we reported was that the FAA ADSB data indicated a GPS altitude of 475 feet. When considering how FAA ADSB data is reported, this equates to approximately 100 feet above ground level. This is what we consider to be the most accurate, but I will also say we're corroborating that with the data from the flight data recorder, which is still being validated and will take several days to be validated. Now, I am going to let you know this will be our final on-scene briefing for the media. We will continue to have team members here working on not only the investigation, but the additional work that needs to be done. We will be providing additional media updates through our press releases and investigative updates through our headquarters in Washington. This is a normal practice for us. It's an ability to make sure that we are prioritizing all the resources in the appropriate place. So with that, we'll try to take some questions. None? Yes, ma'am.
Valerie Chin with WDRB News. Some residents are concerned about oil and black sludge in the waterways around the crash site. What is the NTSB doing about those issues?
So the question is regarding the environmental concerns around the site. The NTSB does not investigate the environmental concerns around there, nor is it responsible for upkeeping it. I do know that the Kentucky Division of Water, the EPA, and other people are on site. They're actively working on that. They're cognizant. I know the Emergency Management Coordinator has mentioned this several times, but it's not really in the lane of the NTSB investigation for us to even speculate. Tom?
Mr. Inman, can you talk more about the alarm bell that was heard in the cockpit prior to the crash? Any idea what that alarm was?
Well, I said that there was a persistent bell. We need to take that FDR data as well to be able to, because there can be numerous different types of alarms and what they may mean. Obviously, we have a working theory right now, and we're trying to validate that against the FDR. That, with the corroborating evidence in regard to the video that we have, is obviously leading us to, we know that there was a fire occurring. But the call out and the alarm could also be a mixture of several different things. So I don't want to speculate too far. The FDR data and the examination by the groups on that will give us a lot more granularity and be able to help paint a better picture. Yes, sir.
I just want to get some clarity on the timeline of events. So you said 37 seconds into the plane moving was when the alarm bell took off, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
sorry, his question was at 37 seconds, that's when the first repeating bell, I'm not using the word alarm, repeating bell.
So how much time in the seconds that followed did the pilots have to react?
So the question was, how much time did they have to react? Well, again, the recording lasted until 25 seconds after the initial persistent bells. That was the end of the recording. We believe that right now that the end of the recording was the final point of impact. But you also have to remember we need to go back and look at FDR data, which could have some other factors. There's over 400 data sets in the flight data recorder, which will tell us additional information. Obviously, these have some power supply redundancies, but at some point, there's just no other information to feed into it. So we provide that just to give you a timeline, but it is not the exact framing of when the accident occurred and how it occurred. Yes, sir.
Conrad Deluche, WHAS 11 here in Louisville. Asking specifically about how your investigation moving forward is going to look over the coming days and weeks, especially thinking about the debris field that is over Grade Lane.
Yeah, the question was about the continuation of the investigation, Grade Lane in that area. Again, we know that later today or tomorrow there will be heavy equipment. In aviation crashes, there are what are called salvers, aviation salvers. They're highly specialized in working accident scenes because they know exactly what can be picked up without damaging it and how to do that. And they have some specific equipment needs. Those are being brought in. They were en route. Surveys were done 2 days ago to make sure we had the right equipment. Once those come in, those will actually enable us to lift and move more things. And that will help along with the investigation itself. The one complicating factor for this scene is because of the type of businesses where this impacted, is you're seeing a lot of combination of similar metals or alloys. And so we'll have to distinguish between aircraft parts and those which may already be on the ground. But we've already made plans to try to move as much of that off-site and then evaluate what we need to in a different location, which will hopefully free up more of the debris area. We're cognizant of the disruptions of a lot of the businesses around there and the fact that people need to go back in and check on their property and be able to find and look for some of their lost items as well. Yes, sir.
Has anything about this investigation been atypical compared to past investigations?
So the question is anything about this investigation been atypical versus past NTSB investigations? I would say every investigation is completely unique, and we walk into it from the very first step saying we have no premise. All we can do is take the facts that are presented to us, analyze them, and then validate and try to come out with the best investigative report. So the NTSB's done 150,000 aircraft investigations in its history. We have a very good process. We have a lot of great experts. We're being supported by a lot of subject matter experts, but every one of them is completely different.
So,
I'll call on you. Yes, sir?
Jonathan Gregg, Spectrum News. Any additional information in the last 24 hours about the MD-11 aircraft when it was in San Antonio? Anything that you've learned additionally about that time it's spent there for maintenance?
So the question was about the MD-11 whenever it was in San Antonio. We, as I said, or I didn't say, I'm sorry, it was in for what we call a heavy check. That is something that is used in every airline, which UPS is an airline itself, uses different terminology, but it is considered a heavy check. We've actually dispatched additional people to retrieve some records. The FAA has assisted us in doing that, and the good thing is they have a monitoring system on any of type of those repair facilities. So we feel that we're going to get all the information we need, but it's going to be a lot of information, and so it's going to take a long time to go through and sort through everything that was done while we make sure we're focusing in the right areas. Yes, ma'am.
Alexis Matthews, WLKY. Now that you have been at the crash site, do you anticipate needing to be here longer than the week or a little bit more than you anticipated, or are you still in that time?
So the question was, at the crash site, do we anticipate being here for another week? We will be here as long as it takes. Some of us may transfer out because we're better using the resources to bring in other people. But I can tell you this much, we're not going to leave until we know that we've secured all of the perishable evidence and all the information that will be necessary to come out with the most comprehensive investigative report. We will do it as quickly as we can, and with respect to those people who still have family members that have not been found. So we understand that. We balance that. We also have to monitor fatigue for a lot of people, so we may rotate through some people. And I know one of the other things that happens is it's sometimes helpful, new sets of eyes open up different opportunities for us. So the good thing is we have a good cadence, and we're working on that cadence to make sure we're doing as efficiently as possible, but more importantly, making sure we're doing everything that's necessary. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yes, Jonathan again from Spectrum News. And going off of that, is the NTSB here until all of the missing persons are found, or does that search get ultimately transferred if that happens, if it comes to that point?
So the question is, does the NTSB stay until all of the victims are found? Our role is not the victim recovery. That is being handled by the local authorities. They're doing an excellent job with everything they can. Our job is to collect the perishable evidence associated with this aviation crash, find out what happened, why it happened, and to prevent it from the future. That's probably it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Anything else you can tell us?
Oh, we're going to do two more, by the way, and that's going to be it.
Any other details you can share about your findings surrounding the left engine, the age, the service record,
Anything else about the left engine? Other than the physical characteristics I said that we have recovered and the other parts that we're looking for, there's not anything specifically more that we can share. I do know that the job cards, which take care of the instructions of how things are done and in what step and order, those have been given to us. So our people are looking at it. And I can also indicate we've requested from UPS an exemplary aircraft. And this would be an aircraft that they currently have in their fleet that have the same type of engines. They've been more than willing to provide one so that our inspectors can go and look at similar ones that are with the exact same type of configurations. And I believe today or tomorrow some of our operations team are actually going to be in the simulators for the ND-11 that are here on site, which is very helpful. And they can look at the cockpit configuration to be able to run some scenarios that they need to come up with that. One more question.
I guess based on what is the significance of the left engine being attached to the pylon? Can you just explain that in layman's terms, what that would mean in the investigation?
The question is in regard to the left engine being attached to the pylon. With the video evidence that we have and what we've been able to see, we know that that area needs to be an area of focus. By letting you know that the pylon is still attached, or let me clarify, the pylon was attached at the time that it disengaged from the aircraft. Now, subsequently, there could be damage that occurred upon its impact with the terrain. So I want to clarify that because when we release pictures, it may not look like what someone would think that we said now. But that is significant to us because it lets us move the focus into other areas. It also allows us to do, in our laboratory in DC, we have metallurgical analysts, and we do a lot of very specific analyzation of that data. So we need to try to figure out, and I think the question yesterday is how much of the airplane will you put back together? This is an area based upon the video evidence we have that we know we need to focus, but it won't be the sole focus. It's one aspect of it, but we need to actually try to do as much as we can to figure out that area because we know we have some form of cause of issue or concern there. Thank you all very much.
All right, once again, folks, an update from NTSB on its ongoing investigation into the deadly Louisville plane crash from just a few days ago. More information to come as officials send that to us and give us briefings. But for now, we want to take a quick break, keeping an eye, of course, on big travel impacts today amid the ongoing government shutdown. In fact, live look from San Francisco, where we heard there was actually a ground stop for some period of time this morning because of staffing shortages. And we're getting some new updates from the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, hearing that there could be even more cuts to flights going forward if the shutdown is not resolved. We'll have more information on that on the other side of this break. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. As mentioned, we've got a brief update here on the transportation's issues that we're seeing amid the ongoing government shutdown. Apparently, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy just appeared on Fox News and reported that the 10% flight reduction that's in place that the FAA has kind of required be layered in might even go higher if the government shutdown continues. Kind of to quote him, he said, it could move us from 10% to 15%, maybe to 20%. And so that's what he said. Keep in mind what we're seeing today is we have about 1,400 flights canceled nationwide. We'll remind you that's from FlightAware, which does not track specific reasons. So some of this could be shutdown related, some of it could be weather related. Regardless, what we're seeing today is only a 4% cut, with the 10% eventually going to be layered in as we go over the coming days. But the potential for the flight issues to get much worse going forward, even beyond the 10%. Take you to the Senate floor right now. We've got live discussions underway, as we mentioned, attempts to end the shutdown. We've got Democrats speaking, including right now Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, who is among many Democrats who are discussing what we've heard now is the brand new ask from Democrats to end the shutdown, which is a one-year extension of Obamacare credits. Let's listen in right now.
About whether they can afford insurance this moment for next year. And in fairness to the majority leader, he can't promise anything for either the Speaker of the House or the President. And they have been absent without leave. They have been AWOL. They have refused to talk. And we are presenting them now with a reasonable compromise that the majority leader can accept and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle should embrace. And the problem here is one of trust. What we've seen from the administration is a strategy of maximum pain to magnify political pressure. In just minutes from now, in the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, this administration will argue that SNAP benefits should be ended after the president himself promised that they would be paid in full in compliance with the district court orders in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. There's no way to trust that SNAP benefits will be provided without a guarantee from the courts. The urgency that we face is also in air transportation. We all want people to be able to reach their destinations safely. It has to come first, and we need to make sure that the TSA and air controllers are paid. They are heroes for having worked for so long without pay. We need to stop the madness of this trend line. It's a through line in the administration's tactics here. It's a through line of cruelty and stupidity that has magnified the costs for the American people, not just in blue states, but all across the country. And we should seek reform and improvement in the ACA, eliminating any kind of fraud and stopping the spiraling increase in health care costs. But I should warn my colleagues, we will not sacrifice the ACA. Very revealing yesterday in a hearing of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation was the commentary from a number of my Republican colleagues, in effect saying that we should kill the ACA, an effort that has been part of their relentless campaign over the last 15 years to decimate this resounding and important law that now is embraced by the vast majority of the American people. And we put in the record stories of individuals from Michigan and Pennsylvania and Iowa. Aaron Lehman, a fifth-generation farmer who told us, "I grow corn, soybeans, oats, and hay with my family. The Affordable Care Act has been one of the best investments in rural health care in decades." We cannot afford as a nation to go back to the days when pre-existing conditions were a pretext for denying health care if someone had a history of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, HIV, asthma, depression, pregnancy. The list goes on. Insurers could force patients to pay more or refuse to offer them coverage at all. Standing strong for the ACA very simply means providing health care to Americans. Extending the health care tax credits for 1 year is a compromise that makes sense. It will put the government back to work fully and capably and fairly, and I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this reasonable compromise. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Vermont.
Thank you. Mr. President, we are now in the 38th day of a government shutdown. That means that federal employees all over this country who have to feed their families are not getting paychecks. It means that air traffic controllers are forced to work crazy hours, and we worry about the safety of our flights right now. We worry about Capitol Police officers right here in D.C. having a hard time feeding their families. These are hard-working people who are doing important work. They deserve respect. They deserve to be paid this shutdown must end as quickly as possible. And on top of the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of workers not getting paid, we now have a president who, for the first time in the history of this country, is willing to allow our kids, low-income, working-class children, to go hungry in order to try to make a political point, a point, by the way, that the American people are seeing through. Mr. President, the cause of this shutdown is not complicated. For the first time in ever, the majority party in the Senate, which needs 60 votes to pass a budget, is refusing to negotiate. It is their way or the highway, take it or leave it. We got the majority, we're not talking to you, despite the fact that they only have 53 votes. And to make this situation even more absurd, and to show the American people the contempt in which the Republicans hold for negotiations and democracy, you got a Speaker of the House who has now given his members a 6-week paid vacation. Country is in the midst of a major crisis. Republican members of the House are nowhere to be seen. They're on a paid vacation. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about whether Republicans are willing to negotiate, I don't know what will. Mr. Speaker, everybody in this country knows that our current health care system is broken. They know that we pay by far, not even close to the highest prices in the world for health care, while some 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. They know that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right, something which must change. And what they also know is that Donald Trump and the Republicans, through their horrendous big, beautiful bill, are making a broken, dysfunctional health care system even worse, taking it to the verge of collapse. That legislation is doubling premiums for over 20 million Americans who are in the Affordable Care Act exchange. And in my state, we are hearing from Vermonters who are being asked to pay a tripling of their rates and even a quadrupling of the rates. Who, in God's name, at a time when health care costs are already so high, can afford a doubling, a tripling, or quadrupling of their rates? That is insane. Nobody in my state, or I expect in this country, can afford to pay that. Further, that big, beautiful bill would throw 15 million people off the health care they now have as a result of massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. According to studies, that would result in some 50,000 Americans dying unnecessarily every year. Low-income, working-class people who have chronic illnesses who will no longer be able to get health care. That is what we are being discussed. Anybody think it's a good idea to allow 50,000 of our fellow Americans to die unnecessarily each year? And all of this is being done in order to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. No, Mr. President, I do not believe that Elon Musk and Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Bezos and the other multi-billionaires deserve $1 trillion in tax breaks in order to throw 15 million Americans off the health care they have and double premiums for over 20 million Americans. I don't believe that. The overwhelming majority of Republicans, Democrats, Independents don't believe that either. Mr. President, the American people understand that the Republican Party controls the White House, they control the Senate, they control the House of Representatives. And understandably, for that reason, poll after poll shows that Americans hold the Republicans accountable for this shutdown. But it's not just polls. On Tuesday, there was an election in which Trumpism was overwhelmingly rejected from Maine to California and a lot of states and cities in between. And one of the key reasons is that Americans want Democrats to make certain that they do not experience huge increases in their health care premiums or get thrown off the health care they have. That is what they are saying. We cannot afford a doubling or tripling in our health care costs. Stand with us. That's what that election was significantly about. President Trump claims to be a deal maker. In fact, he wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. Well, Mr. President, the ball is in your court right now. Help negotiate a deal. Show us what a great deal maker you are. Help us negotiate a deal which protects the health care of tens of millions of Americans, and let us end this shutdown today. We can end it in the next few hours. So, Mr. President, that is what this struggle is about. That's what this shutdown is all about. It's whether Republicans succeed in making a broken and dysfunctional health care system even worse by making health care unaffordable for working-class and middle-class Americans. It's about whether millions of our fellow Americans no longer have health insurance, and that many of them will die unnecessarily. So, Mr. President, we are hearing right now, every one of our offices are hearing tragic stories of families having to decide whether they can pay for their parents' cancer treatment, for example, or whether they will see a parent die without that life-saving care. There are millions of Americans now dealing with chronic disease. They're dealing with cancer, they're dealing with diabetes, they're dealing with Alzheimer's, they're dealing with health, with heart disease. And they are wondering, if they get thrown off of health care, premiums go so high, how are they going to stay alive? How are they going to take care of their parents, their kids? That is what this shutdown is about. And whether it is in Maine, New Hampshire, Nevada, or Vermont, the American people want us to stand with them. And that is what this whole debate is about. We cannot fail the American people. They are looking to us to make sure that they continue to have health care. Let us not betray them. Thank you.
All right, folks, good timing here because we're going to pivot away from the Senate floor to bring you a breaking update on the SNAP benefits dialogue, if you will, that's going on in the courts. The Trump administration apparently just sent a memo to states today saying that it is working to comply with that federal court order that is requiring full payment of November SNAP benefits. And so it said that it will do this as it does continue to appeal the judge's ruling that the Trump administration pay the benefits in full. You might remember that the administration was pushing for partial payments. I believe it was around 65% payment of what folks would expect for the month of SNAP benefits. Then there was that judge's ruling yesterday afternoon saying, no, you must pay the full benefits. And well, we got that breaking news this morning, essentially saying the Trump administration was appealing that. This is a new development on top of that, saying essentially while the appeal is going on, it will work to comply with the order. So all that's to say, there is some movement going on. We want to remind folks, too, that the emergency food drive that we've been telling you about for the last couple of days is still underway in the Charlotte area. Nourish Up, our local food bank, as it is being impacted by the SNAP benefits being in limbo, seeing its clientele increase 20% since the shutdown started, is trying to raise emergency funding and emergency food donations. There is an in-person drive this Saturday at Holy Comforter Episcopal Church on Park Road. You can bring non-perishable food items there in person between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon tomorrow. Or if you'd like to donate online, you can text the word. Essentially, it's a phrase that is one word, stuff the truck, to 50155. So that's stuff the truck, one word, to 50155, and we'll send you information on how you can donate online. Much more to come on this, folks. It's been a busy afternoon here on Live Impact News. We will go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the very latest, potentially from the Senate floor. We'll also keep an eye on the stock market, which has been on a wild ride today. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back, folks. We've got some breaking news to share with you. Just got some word from authorities on a lockdown that happened at a school in Kings Mountain today. This was apparently just before dismissal time at Kings Mountain High School. School had to go on lockdown. We're told police received a call about somebody who authorities at the school didn't know. They were seen entering the school building, so they put everybody on full lockdown there at the middle school, high school, and the intermediate school while an investigation was underway. Essentially, it was determined after the investigation that the person in question was apparently a visitor who had entered the school without authorization to pick up a student. They ended up resolving the situation, they say, without any sort of incident, and they have since lifted the lockdowns. No ongoing threats to students or the community. And so with that, we want to just let you know that's what happened. If you're getting word of some activity over at Kings Mountain Schools, that is what we heard from police was going on. Once again, the situation has been resolved. All right, folks, we're going to turn now to weather impacts of the day. Delightful day overall. We got a big weekend, too, with a lot of outdoor activities and sporting events. So let's get an idea of what to expect.
Well, good Friday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. Now, the first full week of November, it was gorgeous, wasn't it? Not only did it look nice, but boy, those temperatures were very mild. Now, as we're heading into the first full weekend of the new month, you can plan for much of the same. Partly sunny skies for our Friday forecast and warm temperatures. We'll see those daytime highs today rise back into the 70s. Plan for mid-70s both Saturday and Sunday. Could see an isolated shower or two, but then next week, let me tell you, you need to prepare for winter-like conditions. It is going to be a cold start to the new work week. For now, though, let's focus on the good. Yesterday, we topped off at 72 degrees, and today we're forecasting about 71. Across the area, we're just going to see a mix of 60s and 70s, a little warmer to the south of Charlotte, with forecasted highs right around 73 out there in Lancaster. If you're heading out to the Charlotte FC game tonight, should be a whole lot of fun. Temperatures will be mild. There's about 5, 6 o'clock, upper 60s still, but once the sun sets tonight, it is going to feel a little chilly. So grab the sweatshirts, maybe a light jacket. You'll want that this evening. Otherwise, mid-70s for our Saturday, same exact temperature for Sunday with partly sunny conditions. And as far as the rain chances go, we don't have any today in Charlotte. Saturday and Sunday, small chances, only about a 20% chance. And then after that, those rain chances really drop throughout the rest of next week. So here's our big picture perspective, our futurecast. We have multiple fronts pushing through the Carolinas, really not seeing a ton of moisture with them. But here's the thing, once the rain falls, most of the rain that is expected to fall is going to fall while we're asleep. So into the overnight hours or early in the morning, but for the most part, it's going to be nice and dry and actually quite nice during the daytime hours. This secondary cold front is going to bring with it a lot of cooler air, and with that, we could even see a little bit of mountain snowfall. So we'll keep you up to date with that. Let's walk you through our futurecast. We're going to slow things down and localize it a bit more. So here's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, picking up the kids after school. A great day to send them outside to play as it is going to be sunny and nice. And then overnight tonight, here's about 11 o'clock, starting to see those rain showers push into the mountains, then into the Charlotte metro area. But notice when 7 o'clock rolls around on Saturday, by the time most of us start moving around and starting our day, the rain is already out of our area, and the rest of Saturday, it looks fantastic. So if you have any plans, no big problems. But then just like clockwork, here's Saturday night at 11 o'clock, we'll start to see another round of rain and possibly a few storms push through the area, mainly south of Charlotte. And if any of those storms form, I don't think they'll have a severe weather component to them, but we could see a brief heavy downpour. The big story after that will be Monday and into Tuesday. This Arctic blast of cold air sweeps across the U.S. and yes, that does include the Carolinas, going from 75 degrees on Sunday to 47 for our high on Monday. And with those cold highs, be ready for those chilly lows with below freezing temperatures. In the mountains, teens and low 20s early next week. And again, our first freeze of the season is expected on Tuesday. So if you have any sensitive plants, make sure they are prepared. Wind chills feeling even colder than our actual air temperature. By Tuesday morning, here 7 o'clock, we'll be waking up, getting those kids out the door, maybe to the school bus stop. It's going to feel like we're into the single digits up in the mountains. There's that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Plenty of sunshine. Bottom line, enjoy the next 3 days with those above average temperatures and lots going on this weekend around town. We are weather impact Monday and Tuesday because that big drop in temperatures.
All right, and there you have it. We're going to go ahead and turn back to the Senate floor where we continue to see Democrats speaking. You might remember that within the last couple of hours, they had pitched their proposal to end the government shutdown, a one-year extension of the ACA tax credits and the ACA credits. But we've got an update to share, actually, because Senate Majority Leader John Thune apparently just told reporters with CBS News before going into a conference meeting that apparently this proposal from Democrats is, quote, a non-starter. So that is interesting to see, and we will expect, as he has kind of laid out for everybody watching this this situation, the negotiations to continue through the weekend. Let's listen in right now. Looks like we've got Elizabeth Warren speaking.
Old Democrats to vote for the Republican spending bill, take it or leave it. And they have repeated their take it or leave it through 15 votes and 38 days. Now, Democrats have asked over and over and over and over to negotiate to help Americans with their health care costs. But Donald Trump and the Republicans flatly refused to even talk to Democrats to try to get the government back open. Not even once have the Republicans been willing to negotiate, not once. So, where are we now? Well, Trump tweeted 7 times in one day about his brand new marble bathroom at the White House, while Americans turned to crowdfunding to pay for their health care and grocery bills. Trump hosted a Great Gatsby-themed party while he turned off food assistance for millions of Americans. You know the message to 42 million Americans from Donald Trump? Eat dirt. And Trump is weighing the important idea of etching corporations' names into his grand new gold-encrusted ballroom, while millions of Americans who lose their health insurance will get sick and be forced to decide whether to give up care altogether or go bankrupt trying to pay for it. Meanwhile, Republicans in Congress are in disarray. The House is now in its 7th week of paid vacation. They couldn't reopen the government if they wanted to because they aren't even in Washington to vote. They have members, Republican and Democratic members, who want a deal on health care. But Speaker Johnson just says, nope, everyone spend another week on paid vacation. And here on the Senate side, Republicans are in chaos. Leader Thune puts the same bill up over and over for the same votes, but he won't talk about changing a single word. And now, he can't even organize a vote among Republicans to reorganize the government. Instead, Republicans are fighting with Republicans over what to do, and still no one says, let's help families on health care and get the government open. So, Democrats have put a proposal on the table. Lower costs by extending health tax credits for 1 year and reopen government. Do it all in one vote. And during this next year, we will continue to work to make our health care system work better. It's a common sense plan that helps people across this country and that gets our government open. The Senate could do its part to reopen government in less than an hour. We can do it right now, this afternoon. We just have to put the interests of the American people ahead of politics. Americans are demanding, urging, begging Congress to do something. Do something before Americans are forced to get sicker and sicker before they can get health care. Do something before health care costs go up and up and up for everyone in this country. People are sick of Washington politics. So we ask our Republican colleagues, help us do what is right for the American people and help us do it right now. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I stand here today on behalf of the people of Massachusetts to say that we are angry. We are angry that Trump and MAGA Republicans are doubling the cost for millions of Americans, and their health care bills are going to skyrocket when they promise lower prices. We are angry that Trump and MAGA Republicans are stripping Medicaid from the most vulnerable people in our communities. We are angry that Trump and the MAGA Republicans are making families with hungry children go to food pantries for their next meal, forcing families to choose between groceries and rent. We are angry that Trump and MAGA Republicans are using public servants as pawns in their hateful political games. And we are angry that during all of this, the Republicans have refused to come to the negotiating table. The House of Representatives has been out for 6 weeks. They're in a political witness protection program across our nation, refusing to come to Washington to sit down to negotiate on these issues. And Americans are counting the hours that are left to solve this health care crisis for them and their families. They're looking around for help. They're looking around for hope. And they are all looking instead at cruelty, pain, fear. That is the agenda of Trump's MAGA Republican Party. Last weekend, I met with Jeff from Natick, who is fighting stage 4 lung cancer. He pays $35,000 a year for an affordable care, health care plan. $35,000 a year. If he can't keep that insurance plan on December 31st, he will have to pay $300,000 a year. Jeff does not have $300,000. That's about to hit him in about 7 weeks. Barbara, she retired early to take care of her spouse with dementia. Her bill's going from $7,500 a year to $18,000 a year. She cannot afford that. There are 22 million stories like Jeff, like Barbara, 22 million of them, who are facing Thanksgiving and Christmas over the next 7 weeks, and there are no answers for them. 22 million people. That's outrageous. These people are afraid and they're angry. By the way, we saw a lot of that anger come out on Tuesday night. They came out angry. They came out of fear to vote. That's what happened. And it's only going to build and build and build as each day goes by, and we cannot get an answer from the Republicans on how are we going to handle those people. How are we going to give them what they need for those families? And it is very difficult to fathom this abject cruelty of this president, who is happy to force grandma to choose between paying for her prescription and paying for her heating bill, forcing a caretaker to choose between being there for their parent with Alzheimer's or picking up an extra shift, forcing a single mom to choose between paying for a checkup or paying for after-school.
Folks, we're going to break in here with some information on a Gastonia crime scene that we've been following since late October. You might remember back in A few days ago, we told you about a woman's body who was found inside a house in Dallas, North Carolina, Gastonia area. We just got an update from Gastonia police saying that there have been 2 arrests made in this case. There's a Marlo Wallace and a Vera Williams, and they are being charged with multiple charges, including concealing a death, patient abuse, felony assault on a person with disabilities, and those 2 people are being held in the Gaston County Jail right now, both on, let's see, $1 million bond for Vera Williams, $1.5 billion bond for Marlo Wallace. This is what the narrative we're getting from Gastonia Police says. Apparently, there was a semi-truck and vehicle crash that happened on October 26th. Gastonia police responded to this crash on I-85. Marlo Wallace, they say, was driving that vehicle. After going to the hospital, apparently Wallace told traffic investigators that they would find a dead person at their residence, and that residence was the house we mentioned that woman's body was found in, Greenbrook Trail in Dallas, North Carolina. The woman's body who was found, we've mentioned this before in our reporting, 23-year-old Aaliyah Fortner. Apparently she had been living at the home under the care of Wallace. So breaking details, we'll have much more for you on our newscast this evening. Of course, we're just moments away from turning you over to the news at 4. Meantime, we do continue to listen to this hearty dialogue on the Senate floor as Democrats are continuing to make their pitch for ACA tax credit extensions for 1 year as lawmakers work to end the current government shutdown.
American has a right to live in dignity in tough times. That's where we are right now. They're facing increases in electricity costs, in healthcare costs, in food costs, in clothing costs, in everything. And we can solve at least the healthcare part of this issue right here. The richest nation in the world can ensure peace and health and opportunity for every man and woman and child in our country. We're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And the Republicans are about to let 22 million of them lose their health insurance, or see it increase by double or triple, or in the case of Eric from Natick, 10 times, from $30,000 a year to $300,000 a year, and he is in stage 4 lung cancer? And we're not even discussing this. The House of Representatives is in a vacation for 6 weeks. Well, those 6 weeks, if you project them forward from now, we're talking about Christmas. That's what we're talking about. What are we in the world is in the mind of Donald Trump that he would allow these families for the next 6 weeks to worry about where the coverage for their family is going to come from? The very least we can do is extend the Affordable Care Tax credits for 1 more year and provide some desperately needed relief for those who are struggling to get by, who need our help right now, who need the peace of mind right now. Those 220.
All right, folks, we'll keep an eye on the discussions on the Senate floor. Meantime, we're getting closer to closing bell. If you can believe it, Dow has rallied from its drop today, down about 200 points, now ending the day in positive territory, up about 67 points or so at this moment. And we can also